Carl Steinbeck here. Tonight we're going to cover day 13, Massachusetts versus Karen Reed. And we have Sergeant Bukhenik still on the stand. He's spent the whole day on cross-examination. Of course, there's a lot of breaks in there. But I want to get a lot of this covered tonight. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Here we go. What could work the best?
May I inquire, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, Sergeant.
Good morning, sir.
Yesterday, when we left off, we had been discussing one of the trips you made out to 34 Fairview, specifically on an occasion in which you met Chief Berkowitz. I want to ask you a couple of questions to follow up on those questions that I asked yesterday. Did Chief Berkowitz ever talk to you about his communications with Brian Albert and or Brian Higgins, either at that time or afterward?
Objection.
Sustained.
I mean, here's a lead investigator, so de facto, I guess, because he won't admit Proctor is, and he can talk about all the leads of the investigation, all that with the direct examination. And then here on cross, he's asking about who he talked to find out information, and the prosecutor objects and the judge sustains it. This is such an unbelievable sham of a court here.
Did you learn that Chief Berkowitz had communicated one way or the other without telling me anything that they said? Did you learn whether or not Chief Berkowitz had communicated with Brian Higgins?
No.
Did you?
Okay, this is normal type of questioning. Anybody should be asking this if they're a defense attorney and they're trying to do their job for their client. The judge should want to see a good defense attorney fighting for his client. So just to summarily be rejecting so many efforts of the defense day in, day out, that's what this judge does all day long to try to hurt the defense, help the prosecution.
Did you learn that Chief Berkowitz had communicated with Brian Albert? And I'm talking about in the days before you were at 34 Fairview, which was February 4th, from the 29th to...
That's a critical question. What's going on with these Alberts? Both the one that works at the police station there that would have some interaction with this guy, as well as a Brian Albert, whose home that John O'Keefe was killed at.
February 4th.
No.
You returned to the scene, you indicated on direct examination, on or about February 10th, 2022, to conduct yet another search, correct?
Yes.
And on that particular occasion, you recovered some 6 pieces of red and or clear and or black plastic. Is that how you testified?
There was numerous pieces. The exact number, I don't know. You'd have to refresh my memory with a report.
Okay. There were several pieces. The exact number, I'm not really worried about. There were several. There's more than one.
Yes.
Okay. There were also some clear glass pieces, correct?
Again, I don't know exactly, but if a report can be presented, it would refresh my memory.
Okay. Let's do that real quick.
They're getting better in the first trial. I mean, they're doing way better than the first trial. They're going for sidebars more often, which is something I would strenuously do and do more frequently than what they're doing. But they're doing a lot better. Yeah, for those of you that missed it, I was on with Mark Bedrow tonight on the Young Jerks channel. So if you guys want to see that, it's also, I think it's still live streaming on this channel as well as Jerks channel. But anyway, if you missed it, I thought it was a good discussion with Mark Bedrow.
May I look up Coach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Sergeant Bukhenik, actually, let me give you the front page of that as well. Just familiarize yourself with it.
Thank you.
Let me know when you familiarize yourself with that report.
It's like he's studying it like he hasn't seen it in ages. I mean, he should be ready to testify to pretty much any document just off the top of his head. Maybe he needs to look at something and refresh his memory, but
May I approach,
studying
Your
it
Honor?
for that long.
Thank you. Sergeant, did you have an opportunity to take a look at this report?
I did.
Did that refresh your recollection as to the items generally that you recovered on February 10th?
Yes, it did.
Did you recover approximately 6 pieces of red, black, and clear plastic and 14 pieces of glass and plastic fragments?
Yes, I did.
Okay. You would obviously consider that to be an incredibly important part of the investigation, recovering physical items at the scene of the incident, correct?
Every piece of evidence is important.
Not important enough to call the CSI folks, crime scene services folks here. It's a murder case, and he's just walking around. Doesn't have any of the instruments to gather, to photograph, any of that. It's just unbelievable.
Can you describe for the jurors exactly where each of the, let's take them one at a time, where each of the 6 pieces of plastic fragments were found?
All items recovered that day were found in the general vicinity where the other items were also located. The area had been excavated. I've been to that location several times.
Excavated? It sounds like they had some kind of big excavator machine out there. So, and if you excavated it, why would you still find more stuff in subsequent days?
And it was all located in the general vicinity where it was initially excavated, but also where I was told Mr. John O'Keefe was found on the morning of January 29th, 2022.
So other than saying in the general vicinity, did you seek to actually document where each item was found? In other words, by cross coordinates or some other such manner?
The exact location where each item was recovered from was not documented with a picture or GPS location. It was still within the general vicinity of that 40 to 50.
And this right down in the evidence bag, 34 Fairview. And if they even put the front yard, that's surprising. This is like unprecedented level of a botched so-called investigation.
50 square feet or so, by my approximation, near the flagpole, between the street, the flagpole, and the fire hydrant. It was all the same general vicinity.
So 40 to 50 square feet would be a 10-foot by 5-foot square, correct?
Generally speaking, 50, yeah,
Okay,
5 by 10, general area.
If I may, Your Honor, if I may approach this a little bit, would you agree with me? I'm not going to pull out a measuring tape. Would you agree I'm about 10 feet from you right now?
I would agree with you, yes.
Okay. And from the jury bar, probably about 5 feet from there.
Yes.
So we're talking about a relatively broad area for small pieces of physical evidence to be found. You would agree with that?
I would, again, estimate it was the general area, maybe 10 feet in one direction, 10 feet in another, and 5 feet out, maybe 3 feet out. They were the general area where it was initially excavated and then expanded with the snow melting, and all the pieces were within that general area.
But you were working on an assumption at that point, on an assumption that there was some sort of an impact at 34 Fairview, correct?
I don't understand what you're asking.
You were working on an assumption or a presumption that there was an impact of a physical item, in your view, an SUV, with a human being, correct? That was your presumption at the time.
The evidence was pointing that impact took place because there was damage to the taillight. Large chunks of it was missing. And we were locating pieces that were consistent with texture, color, and size fragments from that SUV on the lawn.
I mean, they're just bubbling up out of the ground. All these parts and pieces of a taillight. I mean, it's like, have you ever heard anything so ridiculous and crazy that there's more and more parts every time they go by? It's like another little gold mine discovery there.
So I wasn't assuming anything. The evidence was speaking to us.
You weren't there, correct?
I was there recovering the evidence, yes.
You weren't there at the time of the incident.
No, of course not.
So you were utilizing assumptions and presumptions based on information that was provided to you. Yes or no?
We work by learning information, collecting evidence, and getting that evidence to suggest what happened. That evidence is tested, and then it's all put together into the case.
You use the word to see.
Just him sitting there with his elbow up. I mean, this is so unprofessional. I've never seen a law enforcement officer testify looking that comfortable and just sort of like kicking back like, hey, you got a recliner for me? I don't really care about the stuff I'm talking about. I just want to get through this and get out of here. He doesn't have any desire to make sure this was done by the book, to standard.
Suggest what happened, correct?
Yes.
Another word for a suggestion is if something is suggested to you, you then receive it and assume certain things based on that suggestion.
What we do with suggestions, we corroborate them. A witness statement is, I guess you can say, a suggestion. And then we corroborate it through evidence.
And of course, you make assumptions based on those suggestions, correct? Yes or no?
We have theories.
Another term for a theory is an assumption or presumption, correct?
I guess in some respect you can say that,
Okay.
but I'm
So the answer is
not
yes.
I'm not going to argue about semantics here.
Well, you'll agree that words matter, right?
That's what he is doing. He's doing semantics he did it yesterday. He's doing it today.
I mean, you're testifying, so words do matter.
Words do matter. That's important.
So working off of your, as you put it, your theory, you theorized that there was an impact spot at 34 Fairview, correct?
Based on the statement I hit him, I assumed that Mr. O'Keefe was impacted with something. Initial hours of the investigation, we had those statements, I hit him. We had the statements that, oh my God, did I hit him? So utilizing that information with the evidence at that point that we had was a broken cocktail glass. So a theory would be, why is the cocktail glass broken? Because it came into contact with the victim. So that's why my information communicated to the ME's office was a possible domestic involving a glass strike to the victim. As a result, we had to go and see the victim's body and the injuries. So Mr. O'Keefe's injuries presented a certain way, and we learned more information. So the more information that comes in, the more information that we are able to corroborate statements and collect evidence that further corroborates other information is helpful in the investigation. That's how investigations develop. If we knew everything we knew from day one, there wouldn't be a process of developing investigation.
So the answer to my question, Sergeant, is
They never looked beyond Karen Reed. They never suspected anybody in the house. They didn't want to go down the block, knock on doors. They didn't want to go across the street, see if there's any ring cameras. It was really an open and shut case they thought they had.
you were working off of a theory, correct? Yes or no?
We were working off a report of an injured male party, and then we developed the information, collected the evidence, and developed the investigation.
You know what the word theory means?
I'm sorry, English is like a third language for me. So if you can bring up the Webster's dictionary, I can read it out.
You want me to pull up the Webster's dictionary? You want to take a break real quick and pull up the Webster's dictionary to define a word that you used in an answer about 40 seconds ago?
Of course.
We're working off of a theory, quote unquote. You said it, not me. You want me to go get a dictionary so we can figure out for the jurors what that word means?
Objection.
All right, sustained. Let's move on, please.
Oh yeah, always moving on. Never said that once about the Commonwealth. This 3 weeks of trial.
You would agree with me, Sergeant Bukhenik, that if your theory was that there was an impact, the site of that impact would be incredibly important, correct?
Very important, yes.
And on February 10th, you went out to the scene and you indicate that you found 6 pieces of black, clear, and red plastic material and 14 pieces of glass material and some other plastic material as well, correct?
Yes.
You didn't photograph it? Is that
No,
right?
I did not.
You didn't do any plotting of cross coordinates, which would have been easy to do to determine exactly where each piece was found, correct?
It would not be easy for me. I don't know how to do that.
You've never learned how to plot cross coordinates?
I don't have the tools to GPS coordinate an item.
You take
So you should have waited for CSI. That's their role. You should have stepped away. Just preserve the scene till they get there. But they never called him in. He never called it in, and neither did any of his supervisors or subordinates.
2 points that are stable. You know what cross coordinates are? Take 2 points that are stable, like for instance, I don't know, let's pick something, like a flagpole that doesn't move. And you draw a line, pull a string directly over the item that you find. Then you take another stable item that's perpendicular to that, pull that straight, put it down. That's exactly, you measure the distance between the two. That's exactly where that item, where those 2 strings cross, that's exactly where that item's found. That's cross coordinates in there.
I mean, any kind of cop show on TV, they're going to show you how they grid the coordinates out. They put little cone markers, number it, showing where different pieces of items were found. They have none of that. None of that they use in this case.
Objection.
Sustained.
You ever heard of that?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you know what cross coordinates are?
Why is he objecting to normal police tactics? So the judge said that we don't need to have the defense be allowed to present an expert witness for the defense to talk about police procedures, how they were violated, because the jurors will just get that. And here you have Hank blocking efforts for this witness to be called out on those very things. So if I was defense on a case like this, I would have all the times he's objecting, I'd have somebody there making notes, and I'd be adding it to the motion to renew for Easter to be called as a witness. And then say, you judge, enabled the prosecutor to completely block my line of questioning. The jurors are not getting the important critical details on cross. Therefore, we must have Easter available.
No,
Do you know how to plot cross coordinates?
you just demonstrated to me.
Does that sound reasonable and easy?
What you explained sounds easy, yes.
And you didn't do that.
I did not.
You also didn't, by the way, you had your cell phone when you went out there on February 10th, correct?
I would assume so, yes.
Your cell phone has a camera built into it, correct?
Yes, it does.
You indicated on direct examination you didn't think it was necessary to call out a forensic photographer to photograph and photo document where these items were found. Is that right?
That's right.
But you could have pulled your cell phone out and taken photographs of them, right?
I guess I could have, yes.
But you didn't do any coordinates and you didn't take any photos.
I did not know.
Can you show us a report that memorializes where you supposedly recovered these items?
Yes, the report you showed me, number 83, that documents that they were all recovered at 34 Fairview Road.
Right. So that's correct. There's a report after the fact that establishes that they were recovered generally at 34 Fairview Road on February 10th, but is there a report that describes exactly where on the property at 34 Fairview or off the property at 34 Fairview these 20 items were found?
Yeah, thanks, Zach. There's a chance that could have happened, but I think he just started in this role. I don't care. I'm not going to study and learn up to speed on this case. I can't believe Brennan would be having a witness that is this key of a witness, and he doesn't seem to be prepared at all. He doesn't seem to care it one iota of how he's coming across. Just again, sloughed over in his chair.
That's a question. I'm waiting.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Do you need me to
There's-
repeat the question?
Was there a question? Go ahead, please.
Sure. Is there a report that documents exactly where at 34 Fairview on the property these 20 odd items were found exactly?
The report documenting where they were recovered from is number 83 that you just presented. Exact location is the same general vicinity. If it was something different, if we located these items across the street, different section of the yard, that would have been documented.
What's documented in the report that you just referenced
I mean, what do you go to police academy
says
for?
bullet point 2/10/22, meaning February 10/22 at 9:15 a.m. Sergeant Bukhenik secured 6 pieces of red, black, and clear plastic, period. That's what it says, right?
Yes, same general vicinity. If there was a different
That's what the
location,
report says, isn't it? That's all I'm asking. That's what the report says, what I just quoted.
that's the description of the items
So the answer
recovered.
is yes. That's what the report says.
That is part of the report. That is the description of the
He
items
just doesn't care.
recovered on that date.
And the bullet point beneath that says February 10th, 2022 at 9:15 a.m. Sergeant Bukhenik secured 14 pieces of glass and plastic fragments. Correct?
That's correct.
There is no further description of where those items were found, is there?
I mean, that's sort of a common theme
There is.
with a number of witnesses.
What's the
like
further,
him and
where's the
Ben.
report with the further description of exactly where they were found?
It might not be in the report. It might be on the description of the bag, describing that it was 34 Fairview Road. The report indicates and encompasses itself where those items were recovered from. Clearly, the same general vicinity the initial items were recovered from. If there was a need to document a different location, it would have happened.
But you didn't see the need to document the exact coordinates where those items were found, did you? You didn't see the need.
It did not happen.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Take a look at that photograph. Tell me if you recognize it. What's depicted in it?
Yes, I do.
What's depicted in that photograph, just generally?
It's the side of evidence bag that items were secured in. It documents the case number, the date, time, who recovered it, and general description of the 6 pieces of red, black, and clear plastic.
Sorry to hear that, Haley, about your father-in-law. But yeah, that's what they do. These are highway patrolmen that would have done that. And so highway patrolmen is going to do better documentation than a murder. I just can't comprehend how they could have messed this up so bad.
Recovered from 34 Fairview Road in Canton.
I'd like to have that marked and moved into evidence, John.
Is there any objection?
No objection.
Exhibit 111.
Summer, you're asking witnesses can't speak on breaks of defense or prosecution. No, they can only speak to the attorneys. It's just other witnesses they can't talk to about their testimony. So there's no one checking on that. But if somebody happens to catch them, then they could be in trouble with the judge.
May I approach you?
Yes.
You indicated that the evidence bag would help determine where the exact location was that these items were found, correct?
The general location where they were recovered from.
Can we publish this, Ron?
Okay.
Does this look like the photograph that you were just reviewing?
Yes, it does.
That's just been marked as evidence?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Will, can we make that a little larger so it's more legible? Can you read that from where you are?
I can.
Moving past the date, moving on to the date.
Look
What
at
date
that.
is
34 Fairview. Doesn't even say where.
Date collected is 2/10/22.
So that's the date that we've been talking about, correct?
That is correct.
And this indicates collected by, and who's that?
That's myself, Sergeant Bukhenik.
Description of evidence. This is where the description of the evidence is located on this evidence bag, correct?
General description identifying what's inside.
And what is that description?
6 pieces of red, black, and clear plastic.
And that's all it says about the description, correct?
Yes.
And it indicates location where collected. And there's several lines that are available to fill in, correct?
Correct.
On that first line, what does that read?
34 Fairview Road, Canton, MA.
And that's it, correct?
That's all that was put, yes.
And you didn't fill this bag out, did you?
No, I did not.
Who did?
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to prove a whole lot, would he? If he said prove it, no documentation or chain of custody.
I do not know.
Who did?
I don't know.
You don't recognize the handwriting?
No, I do not.
You don't recognize the handwriting of your partner and subordinate, Michael Proctor?
Objection.
Sustained.
Are you aware that Michael Proctor filled this out?
Objection.
Sustained.
Hey, listen to this.
Were you with Michael Proctor when this?
This is how much they try to cover the truth. Hank Brennan trying to cover the truth here.
I don't know.
You don't recognize the handwriting?
No, I do not.
You don't recognize the handwriting of
Really?
your partner and subordinate, Michael Proctor?
Objection.
Sustained.
That's a totally legitimate line of cross-examination, and then Hank and the judge just out to railroad.
Are you aware that Michael Proctor filled this out?
Objection.
Sustained.
This would be totally something that Hank would be asking. Who filled this out? Who was it given to? All this kind of stuff Hank routinely asks when the defense asks for it. So it's just utter slime tactics, okay?
Were you with Michael Proctor when this was bagged?
No, I was not. I was by myself.
Did you give the items of evidence to Michael Proctor to bag?
No, I did not.
Who did you give it to bag?
I bagged it myself.
Whose handwriting is that?
I do not know.
If you bagged it yourself, why didn't you fill out the evidence envelope?
I bagged it and turned it over, and I told him exactly where it was and what time. So someone else wrote the information.
You just said, I bagged it and told him.
Turned it over.
No, sir. No, sir. What you just said was, I bagged it and turned it over to him. And you don't know who it is that you turned it over to? Who's the him?
Turned it over to them.
Who's them?
Them.
Okay.
Whoever wrote it. Whoever wrote it.
So we're
He knows who wrote it. Come on, really? You can't even remember who you turned it into? You wouldn't want to know that before you testify?
just in a circle here. We can turn the lights
Objection
up.
to the commentary.
So, Mr. Jackson, no comments, okay? Just
Understood.
questions.
I apologize. Ignore my last comment.
Yeah, just side with the prosecution. It's not going to happen. Damage is done.
You had items of evidence that you've already described as being incredibly important, correct?
Those are your words. I actually changed. I said every piece of evidence is important.
Okay. Since this is part of every piece of evidence, do you think this evidence was important?
Every piece of evidence is important.
So was this evidence important? Yes or no?
Yes.
So you had the evidence and turned it over to someone whom you don't know and can't identify. Is that what we understand?
It was a member of the Massachusetts State Police assigned to our office. It wasn't just a random person. I can't specifically identify who it was or who wrote on that bag. I know it was a trusted member.
Never seen someone in plexiglass that's taken out of evidence bag. So leave it to this crew to do that. If I was defense, I'd ask for it to be taken out of there and put back in the bag in my viewed presence, and also get rid of the plexiglass. That's basically just to hide the bite marks on the shirt, the hoodie.
Member of our unit and part of the investigative team.
How do you know it was a trusted member of your unit and a part of the investigative team if you can't tell these jurors who it was? How do you know that?
Because I wouldn't have turned it over to a random stranger.
Okay, so let's figure out the possibilities.
Why didn't they have to sign for it? There should be an evidence log. You should not have this unknown major elephant in the room. You don't know who you turned it into. You know it was somebody you work with, but they don't have to sign for anything. Unbelievable.
Who are among those to whom you would have turned this stuff over? Who are among them?
There was 4 troopers in the detective unit at that point assigned to homicide.
Let's name them. Who are they?
It was Trooper DeChico, Trooper Kakowski, Trooper Dunn, and Trooper Mike Proctor.
As you sit here today, do you believe or do you recall turning it over to Trooper Dunn?
Objection.
We're going to go through each person.
Every one of them. There's only 4.
I'll allow this question.
Do
Finally.
you remember turning it over to Trooper Dunn?
No,
Do you remember turning it over to Trooper Pikowski?
no,
Do you remember turning it over to Trooper DeChico?
no,
Do you remember turning it over to Michael Proctor?
no.
So it might have been just a random stranger. Right?
That's a ridiculous suggestion.
Have you ever seen Trooper Proctor's handwriting before?
Yes,
Matter of fact, you've seen it, I'm guessing, not dozens, maybe hundreds of times, correct?
not hundreds of times, no.
Dozens of times
Sure,
over the years.
sure.
On evidence bags, on logs, on notes, things of that nature.
Some evidence bags, some notes.
I agree. It's not the way it's normally done in Massachusetts. Explaining your objection.
May I approach your Honor?
Yes.
Can you take a look at that document and tell me if you recognize it?
The whole thing or just the front page?
No, just flip through and tell me if you recognize generally what that is.
It appears to be a bunch of handwritten notes from possibly witness interviews.
Handwritten notes by whom?
Well, you labeled it Proctor. I don't know who it is based on the individuals interviewed. Might suggest that these are Michael Proctor's notes.
Okay, so you're testifying that I labeled that Proctor?
I don't know.
Right, so you don't know.
For one, they got to make sure that they verify the numbering on the raffle wheel when they pick the alternates that get kicked off from deliberations. And having the judge be the one to pick the foreperson, I think, is very problematic. I would object to that, but I don't know if the rules would allow the judge to stay on that principle or not.
Well, you provided a document to me, so.
Right, I know. And then you just testified that I labeled that Proctor. How do you know I labeled that Proctor?
Well, I got it from you.
You didn't see me write that note.
Objection.
Sustained. Questions, please.
Sure. That appears to be a series of Michael Proctor's notes, correct?
That's what's suggested, yes.
Okay. In terms of the first tab, there's a purple tab.
Some of these came off.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm just interested in the purple tab. Do you see a series of handwritten notes appear to be from Michael Proctor? Not worried about the content.
Sure.
Do you see a highlight?
Yes.
What's the word that's handwritten in that highlight?
Objection.
So why don't we come to sidebar with this stuff?
Sure.
Please.
Yep, got to rescue the prosecution here. And let me jump ahead.
Yes.
It's like he's just getting wore down.
In the ordinary course of business, is it normal standard operating procedure
Still leaning.
that the person who recovers items of evidence fills out the evidence bag contemporaneous to the recovery of the item?
It's possible you can do that if there's a reason that you have to leave, an emergency or weather conditions you can't write on the bag. You can fill it out later if you have the time and you know where you recovered it from, which is like, in this instance, if it was a general vicinity where all the other fragments of evidence was collected from, it's known that it was within the general area of that section of the lawn near the flagpole between the street and the flagpole and the fire hydrant.
Well, except
So it's
the person that filled out that evidence envelope wasn't with you.
well, I passed that information along to them.
I see. So now it's hearsay information that's being passed along to someone else to fill out the envelope.
Objection.
Sustained.
It's secondhand, let's use that word, secondhand information to the person that's filling out the evidence envelope, correct?
No, it's firsthand information.
I don't think she wants to go down that road. I think she has cognitive dissonance. So I don't think she can think anything other than what the prosecution's telling her.
I passed it along to them.
So it went from you to a person filling out the envelope who wasn't there. That's at least correct.
I was by myself, so yes, I told the individual what time, what location, the case number, the date, obviously.
How do you know? How do you know that you told the individual to whom you passed this along the time, the location, the date? How do you know that as you sit here?
Because that information was then put on the bag and documented.
But you can't even remember who you talked to.
I do not remember specifically who I talked to, no.
If you can't remember who you talked to, you don't remember what you said. Goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's not true. I might not remember now, but the day that it was bagged on February 10th, 2022, I remembered. And that's why the accurate, detailed information is on the bag.
A bag you didn't fill out, correct?
That's correct.
And information provided to someone you can't remember.
Today, I can't remember. No.
You're aware that that particular bag, that evidence bag, was not booked until March 14th, 2022, correct?
I don't understand what you're saying.
Those pieces of evidence were never booked into evidence until March 14th, 2022.
Those particular pieces of evidence were collected on February 10th, 2022.
Sergeant Bukhenik, do you know the difference between collecting a piece of evidence and booking it into evidence, creating a booking label, creating an evidence?
He's just like, he knows what he's asking. I mean, it's like he's just playing dumb, trying to play cat and mouse. Turned into evidence is not the same as gathering it.
Evidence log, things of that nature? Do you know the difference?
I understand the difference, yes,
Okay.
but you claiming that it wasn't booked into something doesn't mean that it wasn't properly handled in custody and under our control.
Sir, I'm not claiming anything. You're testifying. I'm asking questions. Was it booked into evidence on February 10th?
If you show me a document, I can tell you what
Sure.
it might be suggesting.
By the way, the evidence, I have the actual piece of evidence.
I'm sorry, which one?
The photo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
A little bit. I think the judge, she was trying to act more happy than she normally does, but look at her rulings. Her rulings are atrocious for the most part.
Let me have just a moment, Your Honor.
Okay.
Let me jump ahead here.
To this,
There are two documents here.
did you show Mr. Brennan?
I'm sorry. You can take a look at those two documents and tell me whether or not you recognize them.
There she is, constantly swiveling in her chair. It seems like she always does that just for the defense and not the prosecution. I've seen some really bad investigators in both civilian and court martials, and this guy, I can't think of anybody that's been this bad off the top of my head. But you know what happens is they lose the case. If they're this bad, they lose the case on the defense. If I was a prosecutor and had a case this bad, I would never take it to trial. Seeing this stuff for the first time.
Okay. I'm going to leave those up there with you. Does one of those appear to be the log sheet for the crime lab?
One is a chain of custody report for the crime lab of all the evidence that was processed, received, processed, and returned.
Yeah, see, they can hold it at the either one of their barracks, or they can give it to the evidence room at the district attorney's office. But if you want to send it off to lab for testing, you better have an evidence sheet control log. Otherwise, they won't even accept it. So that's the only time they actually did some of that, it looks like.
Yes.
And the other document?
The other document is simply a receipt of evidence being submitted on a certain day to the lab.
And both of those documents indicate that the first time the evidence was submitted to the crime lab was March 14th, 2022, correct?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
I will have to take a look. It's going to be some time, please.
Well, you can look at the top. Well, let me ask you, ask it in a question form. If you look through the log, it's in chronological order, the chain of custody log, correct?
By item, I believe, but I didn't take a deep dive into it. I have to take a look.
Right. Do you see any item, especially focusing on item 712 or items?
That's not really the judge's role to confront a witness that's being evasive. So the attorneys, as long as they're not double speaking over, the attorneys are the ones that are supposed to make the objections. The judges are supposed to rule on it.
712. You see any item being booked into the crime lab before March 14th, 2022?
All right, I'll take a look.
Look at how long he's taking on this. He should be able to glance at this. Oh, yeah, I know what this is. Yeah, this is, and he should be easily up to speed. Very interesting.
Refresh your recollection as to when the items were.
He's such low energy. He can barely keep his eyes open, it seems like.
Booked at the crime lab?
According to this document, yes, there were items booked at the crime lab prior to March 14th.
He talks so slow, like he doesn't really care. He just wants to get this over with.
In
What-
particular, to answer your question, completeness here, particular, that one item does indicate that the first time the lab received it for processing was March 14th.
So they were booked at the lab March 14th, correct?
The first time the lab received these items for processing, according to this document, is March 14th.
And there's no indication on any document as to where those items were before March 14th.
There is. We displayed the bag, me collecting
It's not a chain of custody. It's a document somebody signed. You can't even say who it was, where they signed it, when you made the handoff.
them on February 10th, and they were in our possession at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office.
Whose possession?
The Norfolk District Attorney's Office.
Your possession? Specifically?
At one point, they were in my possession, and I turned it over.
Right. After you turned it over on February 10th, it was the day that you claimed to have found these items. After February 10th, they were not in your possession anymore, were they?
No, once I turned them over, they're not in my possession.
When
No.
you say turn them over, you're talking about turning them over to someone whom we don't know,
Like that.
correct? As we sit here.
Right now, I don't have a memory of who I turned it over to, but it was a member of our homicide team.
So the next time, Sergeant Bukhenik, the next time there's any documentation about those items is March 14th, nearly 6 weeks later. 5 weeks later.
That's a huge, massive gap of time to have no record of where these things are at.
Correct.
I don't know that to be correct, no.
But you can't point to any documentation. You're looking at the logs. You can't point to any documentation indicating
Yeah, there's multiple constitutional violations. This case would never survive any kind of an appeal.
the chain of custody of these items between February 10th and March 14th. Is that right?
This is simply a log from the lab.
Yes or no? Can you point to any documentation?
Ask the question.
Can you point to any documentation indicating where those items went, whose possession they were in what circumstance between February 10th and March 14th? Can you point to any document?
I know that it was collected on February 10th.
Right.
It's documented that it was collected. It was at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office before it was logged into the lab for processing.
You keep answering the same question that I'm not asking, sir.
Objection.
Sustained. No comments, Mr. Jackson.
Sir Bukhenik, do you understand my question? I'm asking, Can you-
That's a legitimate question. Why are you worried about that, Brennan?
you point to a single document for these jurors as to where those items went and in whose possession they remained, specifically between February 10th, when you lost sight of them, and March 14th, when the crime lab received them.
Objection.
Sustained.
May I approach?
Yes.
Yeah, this has gone on long enough.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I'm sorry.
great time
Just
to
for the
approach.
Just for the evidence. False start.
Fire away and make our strenuous argument to the judge. This is a hijacking of justice. No fair trial here.
As the supervisor, you're generally aware of the evidence in this case, correct?
It depends, but very generally on most cases, yes.
As a matter of fact, as the supervisor, one of your duties would be to make sure that evidence is collected and processed appropriately and properly, correct?
That is the standard, yes.
You're also aware that all of the physical evidence that was booked eventually at the crime lab on March 14th, 2022, was done so by Michael Proctor, correct?
I'm not sure exactly who delivered it or who booked it in. But if you have a document, I will reflect on it.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
He hasn't taken his arm off that
Take a look at that. Tell me if that refreshes your
little
recollection.
wall there.
Yes, it does.
May I approach?
Yes.
What is this document you just looked at?
It's the receipt of evidence submission to the crime lab,
And who submitted, based on that document, who submitted all of that evidence to the crime lab?
Michael Proctor.
You're also aware that Michael Proctor eventually submitted a total of some 46 or so pieces of taillight material that was claimed to have been recovered at 34 Fairview since January 29th, 2022, correct?
Yeah, they keep finding more and more and more. I mean, there's no way that thing would break into that many pieces.
I don't know the total pieces, but we didn't claim to recover it there. We recovered it there.
You're testifying that they were recovered, but you didn't recover all of them, did you?
I did not recover all of them, no.
Matter of fact, Michael Proctor, according to you, recovered some of those items, correct?
Some of those items were recovered by Michael Proctor, yes.
And you're also aware that he submitted pieces of taillight material that he indicated he recovered as late as February 18th, 2022, correct?
I am aware that there was items recovered on February 18th. I am not sure exactly if it was him or someone else that recovered it.
You indicated, I think in direct examination yesterday, that as of February 3rd or February 4th, the weather had broken, generally, correct? It was getting warmer.
Yes, the weather was warmer. There were rainy days following the 3rd, I believe. No, the 4th. The 4th, it was raining when I picked up that piece of evidence. So, yeah, the weather had warmed up.
So it was raining and somewhat storming on on the 4th?
There was precipitation when I recovered that item. I mean, I don't know if it was storming. There was
I think it could be both places, Malcolm, inside the housing and also outside, but there's not enough speed generated. There's not enough force that would strike someone, and you're not going to have an arms extended out. That's not going to have probably a really bruised arm and possibly fractured or broken arm.
low pressure
Never
cell
happened.
coming through. I have no idea.
Okay, but that's the same day that you were told that Chief Berkowitz was driving by and saw the therapies.
The day I picked up the single piece with Canton PD present, it was raining.
So he would have been driving by, windows up, water on the windows, in the rain, and saw the red piece.
Objection.
Sustained.
You indicate
As part of the evidence that they gathered, and that's how they discovered it. So, again, just a railroad job here.
that on February 10th, when you did your final visit, made your final visit to 34 Fairview, you indicated yesterday during testimony that there was quote unquote very little snow still present, correct?
That's correct.
They're hoping the jury's stupid. That's what they're hoping.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Hasn't moved his elbow, propping him up. And this guy's a former Marine. He's going to have that kind of body language and lazy posture in a court of law on a murder case. He's the supervisor of this murder, so-called investigation.
Sergeant, that's a 2-page document. Could you familiarize yourself with those 2 pages, please, and let me know when you're finished?
No, you're fine, you're fine.
No, there's no broken arm. It's had all the dog bites on it. No broken arm. No bruising on the body.
Okay.
Thank you. Sir, what do those 2 pages purport to reflect? What are they pictures of? Just general, an evidence bag, something else?
The first one's an evidence bag with
Can you
some.
tell me the date, just so we can cut to the chase, the date of that evidence collection according to that?
On the bag, the date is 2/11/22.
Okay, and what's the
On
second?
the sticker, there's another date. There's a sticker March 9th of 22.
Okay, what's the?
There's also a date at the
I'm just interested in the 2 pages, just generally. I need to mark them for evidence. What's the second page look like?
second page is a large piece of red and black taillight plastic cover, and it's identified by a lab number, I believe.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. So there's one page is an evidence bag, the other page purports to be the item that was in the evidence bag, correct?
I don't know that, no.
Okay.
It's just one's an evidence bag with information on it, and then there's a photograph of a piece recovered. I don't know.
I'd like to have those marked and introduced to this next one.
Hold out.
Is there any objection from the Commonwealth?
No objection.
Okay.
Yeah, he's more comfortable than many of us, no doubt.
Exhibits 112A and B.
Your Honor, request to publish.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Taking a look at this item. Can you describe for the jurors what they're looking at, please?
This is an evidence bag. It is labeled with case number, date collected, time, who collected it, description of items enclosed, the location it was recovered, and the victim's full name. It also has a to scale ruler for the photograph and some identifying marks from the laboratory.
Can you indicate for the jurors who was it that collected this item according to the evidence bag?
According to this evidence bag, it was collected by Trooper Proctor.
And can you show the date or tell the jurors the date that it indicates the item was collected or items were?
Yeah. So there we have another thing signed by Proctor. And notice the location, 34 Fairview. So when you pointed out, it doesn't say where at 34 Fairview.
Collected.
I believe it says 2/11/22.
February 11th. So that would be the day after you were at the location, correct?
It would be the day after, yes.
Can we have the full screen, Mr. Woke? You see the designation at the bottom beneath the measuring ruler?
Yes, I do, yes.
Is there a case number or case designator starting with 22?
Yeah. Of all the medical people that I've talked to about this, not a single one has said this is a car strike. Not a single one. So thanks for that, Lynn Downing.
Yes, I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe it's a LIMS number 22-02184.
And do you see an item number listed right next to that case number?
Yes, this indicates it's 7-15.
And there's another set of initials beneath that, it appears, correct?
That's what, I mean, there's letters. I don't know if there's someone's initials.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. This appears to be something that was filled out by the crime lab. The black lettering and numbering, correct?
I would assume. I don't know for sure, though.
Okay, and obviously there's a date down here, 2/17/23, a year later, correct?
Yes,
And then it says Canton at the bottom.
yes.
If we could have the full screen, please. Okay, you also indicated that there was a label up at the top, correct?
Yes.
All right, if we could go to the second page, it'd be page B of this. Can you look at first of all, look at the bottom and tell me if that number designator appears to be the same as on the evidence, as on the previous page?
The limbs or the item number? The item
limbs.
number is 715.
Okay, and that comports with what we just saw in the previous page, correct?
That is the same number.
All right. This
That's a big piece of glass. And you're telling me that 13 they had go out there marching all around? through the yard on the 29th of January, they wouldn't have found a piece this size. I just don't buy it.
Would be an exemplar, one of the items in that evidence bag labeled 715, correct? There were several items, but this is one of them. Is that right? It's how the crime lab keeps them separate.
I believe so. I don't know their procedures. I believe so. I know they use alphanumeric identifiers. As I can't testify to their procedures, why they do it, how they do it, or the sequence in which, or the choice in numbers or letters. I have no idea
Okay.
about any of that.
We can have the lights up with the court's permission. We can leave this up. If you can leave that up, Mr. Wolf. All right. You can still see that on the screen, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You went out to 34 Fairview on February 10th, 24 hours before February 11th, right? To pick up a piece of, I'm sorry, to look for additional items of evidence, correct?
I collected, I believe, 20 pieces in total, 6 and 14, the day prior, yes.
You see the size of this according to the ruler. Generally,
Yes.
how big is that? The widest part, that thin.
I think it's totally because there was a cop foreman, spent 4 years as a police officer, and so he was the foreperson, and he was able to explain away everything, including every single defense witness.
At the widest part, it appears, if there's no optical illusion with the ruler location, 6 inches.
Okay. That's the 6 inches is the size of a dollar bill, right?
That's correct.
Okay. It also looks like it may be more than that from top to bottom, 6, maybe 7 inches, top to bottom. Did you give us an estimate?
Possibly a little bit more, yeah.
Okay. You didn't see this item on February 10th when you were there, correct?
If I saw that item, I would have picked it up.
Right. Wasn't there, was it?
That's not what I'm saying. I said if I saw it, I would have picked it up.
But you didn't see it, did you?
I did not see it, obviously.
But
No.
according to the information that we just presented, this item was found the next day by Trooper Michael Proctor. Right.
Based on the information presented, that's what it says, yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
We can take that down.
That's true, yeah. All
May I
right,
approach one more time?
medical professional be
This is a
fired.
3-page document.
Did you show
Like-
Mr. Brennan? I didn't see.
You showed it to me earlier. Thank you.
I did previously. Are you familiar with that document? When I say that's a bad question, let me ask it a different way. Do you recognize what's generally in those 3 pages?
I got to take a look.
Sure.
I must have missed your first
Sure.
request.
Yeah, I agree. There's no way they had a piece that large just show up that late in the game.
Sergeant, can you describe generally, just very generally, so I can either mark it or not mark it? Do you recognize what's depicted on the first page, the second?
One of the other things I'm thinking is if there's a piece that broke off that big, it's like it almost would cover most of the corner of the back tail light. So why would there be so many other smaller pieces if you have one big piece that comes off that way? It just doesn't make any sense.
Second page and the third page.
The first page depicts an evidence bag from labeled date of collection 2/18/22. Second page is a red piece of plastic. And third page is also a photograph of a longer red piece of plastic with a little bit of black molding on it.
Your Honor, I would ask that that be moved into evidence as A, B, and C subordinately.
Is there any objection?
No objection.
Exhibits 113A, B, and C.
Move to publish, Your Honor.
Okay.
Sergeant, same couple of questions, if we could. Do you see a date of collection on this evidence envelope?
Yes, this photograph indicates 2/18/22.
And collected by whom?
Trooper Proctor.
Full view, Mr. Wolk? Thank you, sir. And then if we could highlight
What
the
about
lower
appears
portion.
in signatures
That
or
appears to be
handwriting?
by the ruler. Do you see the same, I think you called it a lens number?
Limbs, LIM.
Okay. The LIM number is the same number, the 22-02184, correct?
Yes,
And the item number in this one is handwritten as what?
7/16.
Okay. If we can go to the second page, please. Do you see it, first of all, on the bottom, the same item designator number?
Yes, 7/16.
And what is depicted in this photograph?
A red piece of plastic.
That would be a piece of plastic according to the item number that would be contained in that evidence envelope, one of the pieces at least.
I would assume. Yes.
Okay. Is that a similar 6-inch ruler that's being photographed with that red piece?
Yes, it is.
And how long at its longest point would you estimate that piece of plastic to be?
So that's, like I say, that looks like a different piece from the other one. The other one had like a couple of lines across it. So it was a little bit smaller than this. So you have those big of pieces coming off that back corner taillight. I just don't buy it.
It's more than 6 inches. I mean, probably 7, maybe.
If you had this larger size and the other one as well, I mean, that's basically the whole back taillight. I would say even more, it seems like.
Okay.
Maybe
And-
maybe 7.
I know this is a little bit of a challenge, but how from top to bottom, what would you estimate the distance to be at its longest point?
3.5 inches, I guess.
Okay, and then the next page, please, the final page, which would be sub C. Do you see the same designator on the bottom right?
Yes, I do.
That's 716, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Appears to be out of the same evidence envelope, is that right?
That's what's suggested, yes.
And how long would you estimate this item to be?
7.5, 8 inches.
And maybe, what, 3 inches tall?
That's another piece.
4?
Yeah, 3.
Wow.
Right.
Okay, we can have the lights up, Your Honor, with the court's permission.
So have they ever tried putting these pieces back together? If they have these big, large pieces, you think they would all be able to fit back together because this makes more than enough of the area on that back corner.
Again, the last time you were out at the location with very little snow on the ground, you collected certain items of evidence on February 10th, correct?
February 10th was the last time I collected. I said there was still snow on the ground, maybe in piles where it was excavated. There was very little, but there was still snow on the ground.
You indicated that you obviously looked around the area. You talked about the general area. I think you used the word general vicinity, right? When
Yes.
you collected your items.
Yes.
You didn't see this, and you didn't see the one before it either, did you?
If I saw any of these items, they would have been collected. We did not excavate anything. We simply allowed the thawing and natural recession of the snow to reveal additional items.
When you were there on the 3rd, February 3rd, there was still some snow on the ground that you did excavate, correct?
Yes, there was a lot of snow on the ground. Yes,
By February 4th, that snow was dissipating some, correct?
it was, yes.
You were excavating through that as well, correct?
On the 4th?
On the 4th?
No, we did not excavate on the 4th.
You didn't.
The item revealed itself and I collected it.
That was it. Okay, fair enough. Then on the 10th, you didn't need to do any more excavating because there was, quote unquote, in your words, very little snow. Very little. Right.
Those were my words. Compared to the first day, there was very little snow on the ground.
And in fact, you did not see any of the items that were collected or claimed to have been collected at 34 Fairview by Michael Proctor on February 11th, the day after you were there, correct? Did not see that item?
Did not see that item, no.
And did not see any of the items that you've seen that were claimed to have been collected by Michael Proctor on February 18th, a week later, correct?
Yes, like I say, has anyone taken those pieces, gone to someone that actually does body work? Although nowadays they don't even repair stuff like that. They would just get a completely new tail light. But to try to see how they should interlock. If pieces that are that big, most of them should be interlocking. So if they're not interlocking, you can't fit them on the vehicle. Who knows? Maybe they're not even from that vehicle. You're telling me those couldn't have been planted?
Those items were not observed by me, or else I would have collected them.
We can take this down. I want to change gears for a second, Sergeant, if it's okay with you, and switch to the Waterfall Bar and Grill. You indicated that on direct examination, you reviewed video evidence and you had information that John O'Keefe and Karen Reed arrived at the Waterfall after leaving CF McCarthy's, correct?
That is correct.
I'd like to ask you about who your investigation revealed was there at the Waterfall when they arrived. What about Brian Higgins?
Yes, the investigation revealed Brian Higgins was at the Waterfall at their arrival.
And you learned that John O'Keefe and Karen Reed arrived at the Waterfall together, not separately, correct?
That is correct.
About what time did, according to your investigation, Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed arrive at the Waterfall?
I believe it was 11:03, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
When they walked in, you've reviewed the video, correct?
Yes, we played it yesterday, yes.
When they walked in, Brian Higgins was already situated in the Waterfall, standing or sitting at a sort of a high top bar table, correct?
Brian Higgins was present. I don't know his exact location. The video would depict it.
You did learn that Brian Higgins, on January 29th, January 28th, going into January 29th, 2022, had what could be generally referred to as a romantic interest in Ms. Reed.
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you receive certain text messages from Brian Higgins during the course of your investigation?
I received extraction of his text messages. I did not receive any text messages.
Did you actually receive an extraction from his phone, or was it?
Yeah, we saw photos of his legs real briefly from photos there at the hospital, and he looked like black ankle socks, sport athletic socks. So what happened to those?
Simply text messages that he supplied to you on his own?
It was extraction of text messages on a CD and also printed out the same document.
Did you perform that extraction, or was that extraction performed at your request by Massachusetts State Police from his phone?
It was not performed by me, and it was not performed at my request.
Okay. So in fact, when you met with Brian Higgins, he simply provided you something that he said had been extracted from his phone.
Objection.
Sustained.
Did he provide you something?
Yes.
Did Brian Higgins indicate that he had taken those off of his phone?
Objection.
Sustained.
What was your understanding about what the
This is part of the investigation, and Hank wants it blocked. If Hank's wanting it kept out by an objection, he knows it's very damaging to his case, and that's why he objects. He's not trying to give him a fair trial, and the judge is just going to rubber stamp all this terrible injustice.
The items were the pages of text messages that you received. What was your understanding about where they came from?
From his device and his communications with the defendant and Mr. John O'Keefe.
But you did not have a forensic extraction performed, correct?
That's correct.
And Brian Higgins never gave you his phone to perform a forensic extraction, correct?
That's correct.
So the items that you received were directly from him and him alone. Is that right?
He handed me the items. I don't know who else was involved. You said him alone. He handed me the items.
That's what I mean. You reviewed those text messages back and forth, correct?
It's been some time, but yes, I had.
And those purported to be, I think you already said, those purported to be two strings, I'm going to call them strings of texts. Some string text messages between Brian Higgins and John O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
And some string text messages between Brian Higgins and Karen Reed, correct?
Yes.
Would you describe the text messages between Brian Higgins and Karen Reed that he presented to you as flirtatious in nature?
I'll
Answer it.
Without having recently reviewed them in detail, I don't
So you wouldn't be prepared to come to trial on a murder case? Wow.
want to label it something without having complete understanding of the content. I'm not comfortable putting a label on something.
Well, how would you describe them? I mean, were these business texts?
No, these were, friendly communications. I don't want to put a label on it. They were communications between acquaintances or people that know each other. There was text message communication. As far as flirtations, I would have to take a look at the content of it for certain.
That was the main takeaway. The main topic of conversation.
Terms that would support that label.
Well, do you remember a text message exchange about a kiss that was shared?
Objection.
Sustained.
See, that goes to motive. Motive for somebody wanting to harm John O'Keefe. So that's why he's objecting, and this should totally be admissible evidence.
Do you remember any text message between the two of them that suggested a romantic interest, either one of them may have had based on the text messages?
Objection.
Sustained.
May we approach your honor?
Yes.
Yeah, you need to. This is a sham court. This is disgusting to see. Okay, well, if they had them taped together in the first trial, how do we know that those were the right pieces? What did they do? Take them out of the evidence bag to do that? All right, let me just jump ahead here. They surely didn't fit together 47 pieces. Yeah, I agree. The crime scene should have been taped off. That's reasonable doubt. Okay, I'm jumping ahead here. Look how long the sidebar is. It's not about justice, it's about getting a conviction.
I need you to stay for just a second, please, Sergeant. So how are we going to get, I know you're very careful about not talking to witnesses when they're on the stand. So you're to give Mr. Brennan copies of everything that we talked about, and somebody's got to give them to Sergeant Bukhenik to review.
I have no problem with Mr. Brennan providing report number 11 and text messages.
Okay. And I need copies as well.
Okay.
So if you can get them to Mr. McDermott so I can have them, that would be great.
Can I email them? Would that be okay? Just to save time?
I'm sorry?
No, that won't save time, actually, Mike.
I can-
No, so Mr. McDermott will make copies. Thanks, Jen.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, so we'll see you back here a half an hour. If you need me before then, let me know.
Yeah, it would take a much more solid object than someone's arm. And like I say, if the arm struck it, then it would have significant bruising and broken bones, fractured bones in the arm. And the body would have been struck as well.
All right, Mr. Jackson, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach? Sergeant, I've handed you a document in addition to what's been marked as evidence, item 111. There's a document that's heavily redacted.
It's not going to happen, so let's not worry about it.
Do you recognize is the same document or the same page or copy of that page that you saw this morning from those notes?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'd like to have that marked as next in order, the redacted document with the court's permission.
Okay.
And with the court's permission,
Hold on.
sure.
It's in the
Oh.
114.
Thank you.
Nobody would want to take this case, so they had to get an outsider, somebody that's willing to deny Karen Reed justice by keeping away all the constitutionally required evidence, keeping that away from the jury.
Evidence, item 111 and what's been marked as 114.
Is there an objection?
There is.
Yes. Not at this time, Mr. Jackson, no.
In your opinion, having seen those two words next to each other, do they appear to be the same or similar handwriting?
In my opinion, they appear very similar, yes.
Okay, thank you. May I inquire with counsel for just a second?
Sure.
Yeah, so the chief of police for Canton is driving by, and when it's raining out, and then happens to notice plastic in the yard. Where was Brian Albert? He's driving in and out of that driveway every day. You're telling me he's not looking? It could have been planted by anybody.
Okay.
Happy birthday, James Lynch.
May I approach one more time, Your Honor?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes. I see it now.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sergeant, could you just flip through that briefly and tell me if you generally recognize what that document
Absolutely.
is?
How can anyone trust anything these guys collected? You really believe if they did put these back together that they match? Can you trust that actually came from 34 Fairview?
I do.
Thank you, Sergeant. What is that document generally?
Generally, it appears to be screen captures of text message conversation.
Is that the document that you earlier referred to as having received from Brian Higgins?
It's a printout of the document, yes.
You saw something in electronic format, I take it,
Yes.
and you reviewed it on a computer.
Yes.
Did you receive the electronic file on a thumb drive or a CD or something like that?
I did.
Okay. And this appears to be a true and accurate representation of that electronic copy that you received from Brian Higgins.
To the best of my understanding, yes.
And is that document reflective of the text messages that Mr. Higgins indicated to you were between the string, as I use that word, between Brian Higgins and Karen Reed?
This is what was provided, to the best of my understanding, and now has been printed out.
Okay. With court's permission, I'd like to ask the witness to read the text messages that he was provided by Brian Higgins
So we're going to mark this
for identification only.
Exhibit EE for identification.
You're certainly not asking him to read this whole document.
I expect to.
Certainly not asking. Why, Judge, you don't want them to prove this witness is further demolished on cross-examination? Again, she's rooting
See,
for the
counsel.
prosecution. Yeah, she doesn't want all this coming out, but defense has a right to present this. This is communication from Brian Higgins and Karen in the weeks leading up to the time that John O'Keefe was killed. So if that's what defense wants to do, then defense should be allowed to do that. Let's go ahead and jump ahead. Once we get to these text messages here, I'm not going to play all of them because they last for a while. We'll cover a few minutes of them here and there and then move on to the rest of the testimony. Because he's just reading them. He's just sitting there reading them the whole time. Look how long the sidebar is.
First, find that it is more likely true than not that the person who authored or sent or created or transmitted the communication was in fact here, the defendant, or Brian Higgins. If you do not find that it is more likely true than not that Ms. Reed was the person who authored or created or transmitted the electronic communication, or Brian Higgins was the person who authored or created or transmitted the communication, then you may not consider that electronic communication at all in deciding your case. Now, if you do, if it gets past that and you do find that that burden has been met, these messages are not being offered to show the truth of the statement. They're simply to show that this information was in fact provided to the Mass State Police for their investigation. Those are the instructions.
I think defense had to be totally prepared. They probably had case law. Hopefully they had case law to back up getting this evidence admitted or at least presented through this witness. So I'm glad they're able to do this because I'm sure the judge hates this coming in.
All right, with that, Mr. Jackson, go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate that.
Yes, I'm going to let the witness have that pack. Oh, he's got one. Oh, you know what, Chrissy, I'll take one back. The one for ID will now be the exhibit, and I'll take the other one.
Give me 1 second, Mr. Jackson.
Of course.
Thank you.
Let's do 115.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sergeant Bukhenik, do you have the document in front of you that's been marked as Exhibit 115?
I do.
If you could, starting at the beginning, do those purport to be text messages between Brian Higgins and Karen Reed?
Yes, they are.
Does that printout accurately reflect what you received in electronic form from Brian Higgins during your interview?
Yes.
If you could start at the beginning and read the text string indicating the date of the text, if it's dated, who it's from, who it's to, and the content.
Yes, sir. The text messages begin Wednesday, January 12th at 8:27 p.m. Incoming text message to Brian Higginson's phone from Karen Reed. Hey, Brian, it's the weed whacker. The response is a question mark, followed by a picture of
Right.
a six-pack of Smirnoff Ice screwdriver and appears to be a package
All right,
store
it's painful.
Wednesday.
Let's jump ahead. They wind up showing him up on the screen. Look how he's sitting back. Now he's got both elbows there. Look at how Mr. Recliner. Now they're haggling out how to get this.
So to make it a little bit easier for everybody, Sergeant Bukhenik, you do not have to
Exactly more
describe the emojis. You don't have to say anything about what the pictures are. And you don't have to say the punctuation now that we'll be able to have it. But you are being asked to read which text is from whom. Maybe if we agree upon the color, you won't have to say that. Can there be an agreement with that, Counsel?
We can do that.
I'll stipulate that the blue bubbles appear to be Mr. Higgins.
And the gray,
bubbles appear to be Mr. Reed, the text response.
okay.
That's agreed.
All right, I appreciate that. So you can just read the screen or read what you have in front of you.
Do you want me to start at the beginning or?
No, let's just go. Let's just start where, I'm sorry, start where you ended, if you could, please. All right, could we turn the lights down? Can you see it, Sergeant, with the lights off?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
I just don't.
You know, he was talking so amnesia-like about these text messages and said it wasn't anything romantic between Karen and Higgins, Brian Higgins. So this is sort of how he got punished. He had to read through all this.
Don't give my personal number to anyone.
But this is important because it plays out that somebody had a motive. This is sort of like a love triangle thing that was actually initiated by Karen of all things. So
How would Carrie have my number? Melissa had it. I actually don't know if Carrie does. Just felt like everyone had it. Haha. I knew she did. Sorry you felt neglected. Haha.
So Higgins is acting sort of like, why are you calling me? How'd you get my number? And so
So no dice on the Smirnoff? I have not tried it. Saw it in the store the other day and thought of you. I laughed out loud. Don't give Carrie my digits. Thought of me and everyone's grandfather. I won't give your digits to anyone. You don't have her nickname. You don't have to say. You don't have a say. Something quick and easy. I'm queen of vacays too. Always a good time. I'm going to Nashville next month, 19th through the 21st,
going
for
to
a benefit. One of our guys got shot in the head.
And benefits
You guys should come.
all around the country, it seems like.
So you claim. Advertisement. Jesus, is he alive? Was he from Massachusetts? With Old Dominion Band. Kid Rock's supposed to be there too. I have a tough time with country. I was a Kid Rock fan back in the. I did. We all. I don't ask questions, just make observations, assess, and decide. I am quiet. That's a good policy. Myself. That's how much I go in there. What do you watch, Professor? Solo is cool. I was in adjunct previously.
So here she
Oh,
is
really?
trying to get to know
Did you
him.
mention that? Anna Maria, Quincy College, and BHCC. I teach afternoons and work downtown during the day. What is BHCC?
So the blue is,
University of Southern Charleston,
Higgins.
a.k.a. Bunker Hill Community College.
and the other is
Oh, nice.
Karen.
Trust is life. Line from Good Will Hunting in the classroom at BHCC. Funny. A savant from... No idea who this was last night. For a few minutes anyways. I mean, what's random about me? I think I'm pretty... Nope, never. It was scattered and all over the place completely.
It's going to
But
keep
for the
recording.
weed whacking incident. No, you're not a cretin that I am tight with. So you think you got me figured out? Circle of trust, completely. Your dad died? The loser. I just didn't mean loner to imply friendless, and you arrived private and observant. I'm sorry. What kind? Lung, brain, kidney, and pelvis. How do you know all these things? LOL. You're funny. Yikes. Wow. That's rough. Jesus. I'm sorry. We chat a lot at the hillside. Don't be sorry. Life is hard. We chat. That all you got? We chat? She has been solo. No
here, but there's
queen. What did you say, Mr. Elusive? No, I just don't want to intrude on your couple's night. Haha, I am shy. We prefer to hang out with, do cards or something at some
inviting
point.
you. See that?
Some PT, excuse me. Haha. Did you tell him to text me? No. You cranky now? Haha, no.
I'm jumping
Just
ahead.
stop being so
Fast forward.
anti-couples. Most couples don't even like each other.
Read instead of listening to him, please.
Name a few. Name a few. I don't know. All of them? They all want to hang out with single people? I need a drink. I had a blueberry beer. I'm jealous. You will get over it. Just got my first drink.
A lot of conversation focused on
Brick house.
being- what kind of beer or whiskey.
4:30 a.m. came early this morning. Eek. Nope, not me. What's on your mind? I'm going to a Hillside Regulars 60th tomorrow. This
Loud, so the jurors fall
Absolutely.
below the bubbles.
So this screen, I believe, OMG, always. His daughter and I have mutual friends. I actually don't mind him when he's socially distant. Shit. Doesn't know. Met the daughter. A nurse? 12:59. You stay? No, I'm serious. Want to stay here? I wish. Think you're like me. I think so.
So here where
So
it goes.
why did
why'd
you get my number and reach out to me? Shoot straight with me. I told you. I just think we're alike, right? Yes, agree.
Sounds pretty
Now what?
lame from Karen.
I don't know. Shouldn't you know? Do you like me? Yes. From jump. When was jump? First time I saw you. When was that? Hillside for sure. You're just my type. You think you can handle me? I thought. What do you like about me? I just feel like you're from my neighborhood. Yeah, ditto. And I think you're hot.
If she is telling Higgins he's hot,
You really think that?
she's leading him on.
I have always thought that about you. What? That you're hot, smart, witty. But I didn't think you were interested. Witty. Yeah, meaning quick with a response. Tell me why you got my number and reached out to me.
Again,
The exact.
I miss my spot. He's again asking, why did you reach out to me? He does that a number of times.
Died in March of 2020. I am so endless. I'm sorry, that's recent. It wasn't kind. Lung, brain, kidney, and pelvis.
Spotting
Jesus.
here where
Life is hard. We play. I am solo.
Talk
No
about how-
rotation. I am not a hoe.
on a security camera, it was
Solo?
we stopped over
Solo, like no rotation, or woman for that matter. Not locked down.
somehow.
Good for you. That's the
Somehow, she's telling him that on a security camera that John had seen her making a kiss on Higgins' cheek, I believe it was. So John knew about that and was questioning on why she was acting suspicious with Higgins. So now through this we know that John knew about some kind of behavior that's unusual and improper between Karen and Higgins.
best way to be. Yep. Has its benefits for sure. Are you working? Remotely. Oh, tough life. Live like a queen.
It was off cam. Okay, that part of it, yeah. I stand
I
corrected.
just got a Saturday invite.
But it's
Did you say yes?
photos.
Not yet, but did respond. What did you say? Mr. Elusive. No, I just don't want to intrude on your couple's night. Haha, I am shy. We prefer to hang out with, or W non-couples, point. Being wishy-washy now, end quote. Haha. Did you tell couples don't even like each other? They all want blue
Here, let me go ahead.
and conducts with and your double. How long have think? Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm back to
Mansfield?
was, I think, right about
Distracted. Don't have PD. I feel like you're not really saying what's on your mind.
So we have a lot of this conversation going forth and back, where like Karen's sort of
Do
leading.
you like me? Yes, clearly. Come. I think you're messing with me. I'm glad you came over tonight. Me too. Ball's in your court. What do you want? You always do. Yeesh, really? I'm hot for the hillside. Low comps. Knock it off.
So anyway, it looks like he's been strung along. He's feeling like, am I being played? He's asking her that numerous times, and she doesn't really explain why she's attracted to him. And so it's sort of coming off like it's not genuine and sincere is my take. And I think he's, from the sounds of it, he's sort of suspicious of her as well, her motives. So let me jump ahead to, and then she talks about the relationship also being complicated.
Died and everything got no.
So
I sit here for a couple.
Here. So it takes up a long time. All right, let's see here. There's Karen's parents.
Why don't you come in?
Had a lot of breaks today.
All right, Mr. Jackson, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sergeant, you had an opportunity, obviously, you read them, so now you've familiarized yourself with that series of text messages that you received from Brian Higgins, correct?
Yes.
Would you, I'm going to ask you the same question again. Would you consider those text messages as you reviewed them when you received them from Brian Higgins as being flirtatious or romantic in nature?
I would not categorize them to that extent. Certain parts of it might be, but the total conversation, if you want my opinion, I can provide you with it.
Was there some flirtation in the text messages that you noted?
There are terms that I used. You're hot, witty, stuff like that. You know, talking about banging.
He needs to downplay this potential conflict with Higgins and John and Karen.
And hooking up.
What word would you use to describe them if not flirtatious?
The totality of the conversation?
Sure. Let's start there.
My opinion is that it's a angry girlfriend trying to set up a hookup to her John.
To her jump?
To her John.
To her John.
Yeah.
Would you consider the responses from Brian Higgins to be flirtatious in nature?
There are conversation parts that are.
Notice he says an angry girlfriend. So they're trying to make this all about anger. Yet, think about this. These texts have really about an angry girlfriend that's just out of control. Then Hank would have admitted them. Hank did not admit these texts like he did on the others between Karen and John. He didn't want to admit these between Higgins and Karen because it goes to show that something was brewing that night at the waterfall.
Enticing, maybe a little of advances, but the totality of, to put a label on the whole thing, my opinion is that she's trying to get revenge.
Get revenge?
Yes, get revenge.
On John?
Yeah.
For what happened on New Year's Eve?
Yes.
Okay. When you say revenge, you don't mean physical revenge.
Well, emotional revenge. She's trying to hook up with Higgins and then hurt John by cheating on him.
And in fact, you did note that John O'Keefe was not privy to these text messages, right?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Do you know that?
I do not, Your Honor, no.
He's not on these texts, is he?
I don't know if their accounts are synced at this point. I don't know if he's seen them. I don't know.
He's not, his phone, you know what his phone number is. You guys got his phone.
He's still uncomfortable. He's still not enthused to be here. He's still leaning on that.
Correct?
We do have his devices.
Do you have any evidence that his account was somehow, I don't even know if that means synced with Karen Reed's account?
Not from his device, no, but he could have seen the text message.
Okay, so there's no evidence that he was synced. His account was synced with anything, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
There's no evidence.
You were facing the other way. I didn't hear.
There's no evidence that his account was synced with anything.
Not his device that we have, no.
And you don't have, as you sit here, you don't have any evidence whatsoever that he saw any of those text messages, correct?
We don't have that, but I do not know.
Okay, so as you sit here, my question is very simple. Do you have evidence, affirmative evidence, that John O'Keefe ever saw these text messages?
I do not have evidence that he saw them,
Okay.
no.
So would you agree that the text messages show a romantic interest, for whatever motivation, a romantic interest from Brian Higgins toward Ms. Reed?
You have to ask that differently.
In your mind, as you read the text messages, did you determine in your head that there was a romantic interest by Brian Higgins toward Karen Reed?
In my mind, I saw the text messages for what they were, initiated by Karen Reed, and began a text message conversation with Brian Higgins.
And responsive,
You want to answer?
sorry, Brian Higgins was responsive to those text messages, correct?
They did communicate back and forth.
He was responsive to the overtures that Ms. Reed made toward him, correct?
Overtures?
Suggestions. Let's get together for a drink, come over to my house, I'll come over to your house, things of that nature. Those went back and forth between the two, correct?
Yes, they were back and forth.
And did you determine that there was an interest by Brian Higgins in Karen Reed?
Of course there was.
I read that he repeatedly asked her, what's her plan, what's her goal, what's her interest, what's her intent.
Did that show you an interest on his part in her?
I think at one point he said he was confused, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or what's the term he used? He was unsure what she wanted.
He called her hot.
He did, yes.
He called her witty.
Right from the rip, yes.
He said he wanted to spend time with her.
Spend time, yes. Yeah.
He was interested in going over to her house.
Yes,
He was interested in her possibly coming over to his house.
yes.
He told her that he thought she was hot, his words, from the jump, correct?
From the jump. Yep.
What did that, how do you interpret that?
From the
Yeah, well,
jump, I would
obvious.
interpret it as right from the beginning. Maybe the first time they saw each other, laid eyes on each other. I mean,
As a matter of
Why can't you just admit it, Sergeant, that they both showed interest in each other? He was somewhat suspicious of her motives, but it was a demonstration through the text of mutual interest.
fact, he basically said that, didn't he, in the text message from the first time I saw you? I thought you were hot.
yes.
He constantly was using phrases, to use your words, phrases interested in knowing how she felt about him, correct?
Objection.
Sustained you. To ask it differently, Mr. Jones.
Did you interpret any of his text messages as Brian Higgins being interested in knowing how she felt, what she was thinking about him?
Objection.
Ask it again.
When you first saw these text messages and you reviewed them, did you interpret those text messages in your mind? That's what I'm interested in your mind, as Brian Higgins being interested in knowing how Karen Reed felt about him.
I believe his statement indicates that he was interested in seeing what her interest was, what her intention were, and questioning the fact that she's dating live-in boyfriend with his buddy.
Are you still interested in her by following up with those?
He used the word ghost several times, correct?
I do recall reading the word ghost.
How did you interpret that word?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I interpreted ghost in the common slang terminology as to abandon conversation, stop communicating.
He indicated that 2 different times in the text string, correct?
I know I read the text messages, by reading them out loud to a room full of people, I might not have remembered how many times the term ghost came through.
Fair
I was
enough.
concentrating more on the reading, not on the comprehension of each word.
Fair enough. But you did note that he used that term in his text messages to her, correct?
I think I recall at least once that the term ghost was present in the communication.
Did you interpret that? I'm looking for what was in your mind. Did you interpret that, the use of that word by Brian Higgins, as showing some level of frustration at her abandonment of the conversation?
No, I did not.
Not at
No,
all?
no.
Have you ever heard the phrase, "you ghosted me"?
Yes.
How do you interpret that phrase, just in general?
I've heard it communicated between other people.
This is how you have to dumb it down. It's like pulling teeth to get something out of this guy. This obvious he's resisting to this degree. It's really wasting a lot of time.
Never used the term ghosted. I think it's a little after my time in communicating with others, but I take it as you stopped responding to my text messages.
Do you take that, do you interpret that, or did you interpret that as a positive or a negative comment? You ghosted me.
I interpret it as a matter of fact, like you stopped talking to me. I never thought about it in a positive or negative connotation. I never gave it any thought.
As you sit here now, if you do give it thought, would you put a positive or a negative connotation on the phrase, "you ghosted me"?
Objection.
Sustained.
Oh my gosh.
You're aware that based on the text messages that we just saw, there was a series of text messages that went back and forth starting in mid-January and basically ending around January 23rd, correct?
This chain of text messages began in January 12th and ended January 29th.
Right. I'm going to get to the 29th, but the back and forth ended on January 23rd, did it not?
I don't recall specifically. I can leaf through it and tell you what it is. I know I read the dates out loud, and again, I was concentrating on reading.
Do you have the document in front of you?
I do.
Could you turn to the last page?
Yes, sir.
I believe it's the last page. It may be the second to the last page or something. Do you see an entry on January 23rd, 2022, a text message from Brian Higgins, "Thought you were all set"?
Yes.
And Ms. Reed responded with "talking?" Question mark, "No," period. Correct?
That is her response.
Mr. Higgins then responds, with 4 N's behind the H, correct?
That's correct.
And then he responds again. By the way, did Ms. Reed respond to the
No, she did not.
And then he follows up with, "You sure?" with no punctuation, correct?
That's correct.
Did Ms. Reed respond to "you're sure"?
She did not.
The next text is on January 29th at 11:32 p.m., correct? I'm sorry, January 28th at 11:32 p.m. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Is that from Ms. Reed or from Mr. Higgins?
At 11:32 p.m. on Friday, January 28th, it is from Mr. Higgins.
That's all I asked. And now, can you tell the jurors what that text is? And then the next text immediately after it.
Well,
So between January 23rd and January 28th, would you describe Ms. Reed's side of the conversation as having ghosted Mr. Higgins?
no, she initiates the conversation. You had me read the second text message in the chain.
Between January January 23rd, when that last text message was sent by Brian Higgins,
Mhm.
until January 28th at 11:32, would you describe that as Ms. Reed having ghosted Mr. Higgins in those 5 days?
Strictly looking at the text message communications and not knowing whether they.
Correct. I'm not asking you to speculate. I know there's other stuff you want to say. I'm asking you just to read, but just to answer the question I've asked. Based on the text that in front of you, Sergeant Bukhenik,
Mhm.
does it appear that Ms. Reed ghosted, as you define the term, Mr. Higgins, from January 23rd until January 28th?
One could read into that in that manner, yeah.
And then on January 28th, Sergeant Bukhenik, when Brian Higgins sends, well, Ms. Reed responds.
Yeah, if you look at the microdots video about the waterfall, and then you square that with listening to what was played out here today on the text messages between Karen and Higgins, and you sort of get an idea of what sort of led up to this kind of aggressive posturing by Higgins at the waterfall.
No, she did not. They were together at the same location.
Did she respond to the text?
On that day?
Correct.
Not on text message, no.
You said they were together. That means that Brian Higgins was together in the same room with this Reed when he sent his text, correct?
Yes.
And she ignored it, didn't she?
Sustained.
You also received from Mr. Higgins certain text messages between him, Mr. Higgins, and John O'Keefe himself, correct?
Yes, we did.
And one of those text messages, one of the last text messages that
I can see that happening, Olivia, Kat. Higgins was upset Karen ignored him and decided he was going to tell John that Karen was texting
they
him.
exchanged was, as a matter of fact, the last text message that was exchanged was Brian Higgins at 12:20 a.m. on January 29th, 2022, texting Mr. O'Keefe, "You coming here?" with 3 question marks, correct?
I would have to take a look at the document. I don't have a
Yeah, the text messages from law enforcement in their private cells as well, that all came from the FBI.
memory of it specifically. I know I reviewed it, but I don't have a memory of the time and content.
May I approach your honor?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. No, no worries.
Yeah, and in the text, Karen was saying she's struggling on what her role was. The kids were hard to deal with. They're having basically parenting issues, and that was causing problems between John and Karen.
Based on this extraction, I cannot definitively say that this text message was sent on January 29th because of the file source time and and the JPEG being so small. I can't testify to that, sir.
May I approach?
Yes.
Your Honor, Mr. Brennan has kindly offered to stipulate that the "you coming here" text was sent. I would offer the following stipulation: that the "you coming here" text was sent on January 29th at 12:20 a.m. from Brian Higgins to John O'Keefe's phone. Quote, "You coming here?" 3 question marks following it.
What was the time?
I'm good. 12:20 a.m. May we enter that stipulation with the court's permission?
Sure. So, jurors, you've heard that the lawyers agree that that fact is true.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant. So you were aware of the timeline on or about January 29th when, first of all, Karen Reed had not responded to a text message from January 23rd throughout January 28th and into January 29th. Sorry, throughout January 28th by 11:32 p.m. or so. She just not responded. Correct?
So the text message that she sent to Brian Higgins, the last time she sent a text message was on the 23rd.
And he responded to several text messages to which she did not respond on January 23rd. Correct?
I believe she sent 2 and he said 3, I believe.
So the answer is yes. There was a text message that she sent, that he sent to which she did not respond. Is that right? On the 23rd.
He was the last one to send a text message on the 23rd.
That was following multiple text messages back and forth between the two of them.
Rachel Johnson, thanks for alerting us to this. I'd heard something about it earlier, but I did not hear how it was changed. But you're saying the buffer zone case won the appeal and the judge has to amend her order. Yeah, this is pretty much a ghost town. Speaking of ghosting, the judge's order made it a ghost town. I couldn't believe that federal district judge rubber stamped it. I mean, this is like so extreme where you can't even be near the courthouse within a couple blocks. It's the most extreme, drastic measure I've ever seen. And that does not survive constitutional scrutiny. But you know what? When does anything about the Constitution matter there in that courtroom?
Spanning a couple of weeks, right?
Yes.
Then, on January 28th, 2022, Brian Higgins is at the Waterfall Bar and Grill after 11:30 p.m., right?
He was.
Karen Reed then walks into that same Waterfall Bar and Grill, accompanied by her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, correct?
They did.
Brian Higgins then texted Karen Reed, who's standing in the room, well, correct?
Correct.
Karen Reed ignored that text, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Karen Reed did not respond to that text.
There's no text.
Brian Higgins then, a little less than an hour later, texts John directly, "You coming here?" with 3 question marks, correct?
Correct. It's been stipulated.
That is an accurate timeline of the events that we just talked about, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Higgins is wanting to make sure John O'Keefe shows up to 34 Fairview, and he puts triple question mark after that in the text.
You're also aware of a call. Your investigation revealed a call between Brian Higgins and Brian Albert at 2:22 a.m. on the 29th, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did your investigation reveal a call between between Brian Higgins and Brian Albert at 2:22 a.m.?
Objection.
Sustained.
May we approach, Your Honor?
This is critical. I mean, this is like a key part of investigation that shows third-party culprit type evidence, and the prosecutor knows this is what defense wants to argue, so they're completely trying to strip the defense of their case, their constitutional right to present a defense that somebody else did it, these people in the house are acting suspicious, and the judge sustains this trash objection. Unbelievable. Yet another point of appeal that would reverse this thing on appeal. But hopefully this jury gets it and there won't be any conviction. Look at all this time they're wasting.
During the course of your investigation, that there were calls between Brian Higgins and Brian Albert at approximately 2:22 a.m. on the 29th?
During the course of my investigation, I was not aware of that.
So we know that, see, the aggressiveness counted because he's able to go down this line of questioning. He was able to talk the judge into reversing her decision and allowing him to go down this line of questioning. So that's why it's very important as a trial attorney. If you get a judge making bad rulings, you got to have sidebars and go up there, especially when it's something this critical to your case.
If you have a document that I can see, I can tell you if I've ever seen it before.
Did you seek to secure Brian Albert's cell phone to determine what calls he did and didn't make on
No.
January 29th or January 28th?
No, we did not.
Would, in your experience, would a phone extraction, a cell phone extraction of Brian Albert's phone have revealed calls made and received in the time frame that we're talking about, the 28th and the 29th of January 2022?
If a phone is extracted, the records of phone calls being made and received would show those records.
You did receive information from Brian Higgins' phone, specifically the texts that he claimed he pulled off of his phone and gave to you, correct?
We received text messages that I read today that Brian Higgins provided from his phone.
Did you seek to secure his actual phone for a forensic download or
They
forensic
did.
mirror image
Got
to get the actual calls made and received or text messages made and received from his phone?
Think about it. Massachusetts State Police, you think they're really going to pull the phone records for their own troopers as well as the Canton Police Department and the witnesses in the house? No, not all the witnesses in the house. They weren't going to go down that road.
No, we did not.
At some point, this is just yes or no. At some point, did you become aware of a call between Brian Higgins and Brian Albert at 2:22 a.m. on the morning of the 29th? Just yes or no.
No.
As you sit here today, this is new information to you. This is,
True.
let me rephrase that. This is unknown information to you. You do not have any information about that?
Objection.
Sustain. We need a time frame, Mr. Jackson.
I realize that, Judge. That's why I'm asking it this way. As you sit here, are you aware of a phone call between Brian Albert and Brian Higgins at 2:22 a.m. on January 29th, 2022?
Well, you just shared that with me. I have no memory or record of seeing that it actually took place. I do not know.
That's because he never looked at the FBI's report, the 3,000 pages of information. He didn't bother to care to look it up, even though he's being forced to become the lead detective on this case because they're trying to hide Proctor.
Okay, so you've never heard that before. That was what I was getting to. You've never heard that before.
No.
Okay. You indicated that you did not seek to secure Brian Albert's phone to do a phone extraction at any time, correct?
We did not try to get Brian Albert's phone for any reason whatsoever.
Did you become aware during the course of your investigation that Brian Albert destroyed his phone?
I'd like to be seen.
Yeah,
Objection.
jurors disregard that question. Over to sidebar, please.
Yeah, of course. Let's jump ahead. I'm not even going to comment on this garbage. Wasting more time. Trial.
By Brian Higgins at 1:35 a.m. while at Canton Police Department.
I am not aware of that, no.
What?
So
Let's back up.
35. May I inquire?
Yes.
Thank you. Did you become aware of a call that was made by Brian Higgins at 1:35 a.m. while at Canton Police Department?
I am not aware of that, no.
That's a huge issue. What was he doing at the Canton Police Department that early in the morning?
So you did nothing in terms of investigating any phone call that Brian Higgins did or didn't make while at Canton PD on the night or the early morning hours of January 29th, 2022.
We never sought to get Brian Higgins' phone. He was not looked at as a individual that we would need to get his information for any reason at that point.
Even after you received and read all of those text messages between him and Karen Reed.
Correct.
And even
Hey, just a reminder, there's a lot of new followers on the channel. I want to keep this channel clean, so refrain from any profanity and derogatory name calling and stuff like that. There's so much negative stuff on the internet. I'm trying to have this be a courtroom level type discussion, just act like we're talking in front of a judge. And so that's what I'm hoping to get out of this. And so please respect that, because I've been deleting a number of things tonight, and just prefer not to do that, but please keep those guidelines in place. Thank you.
after you became aware of the timeline that we just walked through, starting on January 23rd, going all the way into January 28th and into January 29th. You did nothing to investigate that.
We had the information that we had. We did not need to get his phone.
And the information that you had came from Brian Higgins himself, not from a forensic extraction, correct?
The extraction that Brian Higgins provided was a forensics extraction of his communications with Mr. O'Keefe and Karen Reed. We had Mr. O'Keefe's phone and we had Karen Reed's phone, so we can verify and confirm that those text message communications were accurate, unredacted, not deleted, and were true representation of what their communications consisted of.
And that was a representation made by whom?
The totality of it.
That was a representation made by whom? A person made that representation to you that it was fair and accurate. Who made that representation?
It wasn't a person, it was the extractions between the three devices.
Well, an extraction that you were handling
All right. Well, as you can tell, I don't have a lot of mods here, so this is a very professional channel. The folks that are viewing this on a regular basis, they understand that. So just for all the new folks here, just keep that in mind, please. Thanks a lot.
Handed on a device by someone, correct?
No, I said that we had all three devices. And as I told Mr. Higgins in our interview together, I said, Brian, we have those two devices.
Meaning
If you,
Sean's and Karen's.
correct.
Okay.
If there's anything deleted or altered in any way, we will have proof of it. So please make sure that you understand the magnitude of the situation. We're investigating a homicide. It needs to be accurate, and it was.
And you trusted that coming from Brian Higgins rather than simply getting abstraction from someone, correct? Yes.
I trusted him, yes, because we trust and verified. And after verifying, the extractions were correct.
And following that verification of the text messages, did that raise any suspicion in your mind about any possible motives Brian Higgins may have relative to John O'Keefe?
Patricia, I don't know what you mean by your comment, no mods, because I changed. I don't know what way I changed. I just don't want to have any mods to have their own decisions made. I want to make my own decisions made on if somebody gets stricken or not. So not going to have some kind of fight going on between any mod and the viewers.
Suspicions of motives? Is that your question?
Correct.
No, the evidence spoke for itself. The honesty, cooperation of all the witnesses and corroborating, supporting facts spoke for themselves. So I was not suspicious of his motives. The conversation was documented over text message. Spoke for itself.
Supporting documentation, including the text message at 2:20 a.m. Just
There's a lot of reversal errors here. Definitely a lot of them.
minutes before John O'Keefe arrived at 34 Fairview from Brian Higgins, right? 12:20 a.m. That's one of the factors, right?
This guy's elbow is glued to that bar there, that pony wall or whatever you call it.
That's one of the factors that is part of the
I
entire.
understand it. I understand it's hard to keep your tongue under control when you see this kind of crazy stuff going on in a supposed courtroom.
Our investigation, yes.
One of the other factors is John O'Keefe's body was found in the lawn.
I get it, but
at
let's
34 Fairview,
try to
just
stay in
feet,
check here.
just feet from the front door, side door, and the garage door. Right.
That is when Mr. O'Keefe was found on the left side of the lawn, yes.
And one of the factors was you originally said that it appeared that it may be an incident involving a cocktail glass in the face. Initially, please.
Based on verbal reports, initially, that was a possibility. Again, it was before we spoke to
I realize it's before a lot of other things happened, but initially, that's what I'm asking about.
yes, initially, it was a possibility.
And when you saw John O'Keefe at the hospital, a big contusion above his right eye, correct?
That is not correct.
A big egg just above his right eye.
That is not correct.
You did not see that?
His eyelids were swollen, not above his eye. And there wasn't a contusion.
Two different paramedics, so they saw what they described as an egg above his right eye. Well, let me ask you differently. Did you speak to any of the paramedics?
Yes.
Did they describe an egg above his right eye?
I'd have to see a report to actually be described as an egg above his right eye.
Did you notice a laceration at his right eye?
His right eyelid did have a
Yeah, as I've been saying, they need to renew the motion to have Easter admitted as a defense expert, because there's so many things that the defense has not been able to attack the prosecution on. Cross-examination, even though it's going so great, this witness is imploding here since yesterday. They still need to have somebody to really walk the dog and explain how all this was botched up, how serious and significant these breaches are from the standards of criminal investigations and CSI work.
tiny, tiny laceration.
Did you see a small laceration in his nostril or his nose?
A tiny, tiny laceration, yes.
You noted that he didn't have any broken bones or fractures other than to his skull.
I did not know that. I didn't conduct x-rays or conduct the autopsy. I'm not a medical professional.
You didn't ask the doctors at the time you went and visited him and saw him in the hospital whether or not he had broken bones or fractures?
I don't believe they reported that.
I'm not putting on any shorts. That's my brother John. Oh,
And
thank you.
another factor that you considered was the fact that in the early morning hours of January 29th, 2022, around 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., there were no taillight pieces found at that location. Zero. You consider that?
At what point?
On January 29th, when say 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Consider that?
Once we learned that there was damage to the defendant's right rear taillight, I could only consider at that point because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
We don't know. We don't know. We work with the evidence that's presented and we develop the investigation.
And the evidence that was presented at that time, Sergeant, was a leaf blower was used to search the area, the exact area that you described for this jury as being the area around fire hydrant, flagpole, where John's body was, and no taillight material was found at all in the first searches. You're aware of that, yes or no?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, you're also aware that no taillight material was found until after that SUV was in Massachusetts State Police custody and sitting at the Sally Port in Kent. Correct?
I believe the first taillight piece was found after it was in our custody. I don't know the exact time. I'd have to see it.
Yeah, this is something that I'm not that familiar with. It's a very young jury, like what we're hearing reports on. So it is somewhat a type of setup that you don't see very often. So I don't have a lot of historical experience dealing with these kind of younger folks. I do know that the younger folks, they have different processing and training to go through with the federal government because they have a whole different way of responding to folks in the 40s, 50s, 60s, etc. They have a totally different way of communication and it takes different ways to get them motivated. So I don't know how that kind of difference in culture can affect the jurors, but obviously it could be a difference.
When you talk to Brian Higgins, did you ask Brian Higgins
He took his elbow off there.
about potentially seeing John's body when he left 34 Fairview and headed over to Canton PD?
Yes, I did.
You knew that at that time, say 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning, there was about 0.2 of an inch of dusting of snow, right? Very light.
At that point in time, there was a coating. I cannot speak to the amount of snow that was on the ground.
But Brian Higgins told you in that interview that he didn't see the body because it was hidden by a snowbank.
Objection.
Did he say that to you?
I don't have a memory of that, Your Honor.
Yeah, John.
Yes.
Take a look at
Yeah, they've not brought up standards of crime scene investigations, like going through any type of police instruction, academy instruction. So I thought they'd be doing some of that, but they haven't done that at all yet. So that's why it's even more important to have Easter there.
page 3, the highlighted portion, if you wouldn't mind. May I approach?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection that Brian Higgins said something about a snowbank at the time when he left 34 Fairview?
He stated the reason he did not pay attention to the grass is he was concerned with his snowplow on his vehicle and was not paying attention to anything over the snowbank, just with the plow in front of him as he operated the vehicle.
And of course, you knew at the time, as a detective and an investigator.
Proctor, unless there's a statute that can force him to testify like they have in Florida for the Adelson case, or they give him immunity, the state would give him immunity. Then if he pled the fifth, yeah, he could not be called. So don't know how that'll exactly shake out, but I think he's trying to fight for his job, so I think he's going to testify.
You knew at the time.
In other words, he's going to try to fight it through the court mechanism, I believe, through civil lawsuits to try to get his job reinstated.
Dusting snow. There is no snow. Right.
He mentioned plowing the driveway for the Alberts when he arrived. So there might have been coating and he was just plowing it and then creating a line. I cannot speak to how much snow was actually being plowed with the dusting that was on the ground. So there might have been a small snowbank. Again, he was referencing it. He was not paying attention to anything behind the snowbank. So behind it.
Snowbank being in the lawn. Actually, he said the lawn.
No, he's-
Sorry. He talked about the snowbank being in the lawn. Not the right, right? That's not what you're saying.
he said he was not paying attention anything past the snowbank being the lawn.
And did not pay too much attention to the lawn area behind the snowbank. Correct?
Right, off to that area.
Yeah, as well as the theory on the collision. We don't have the autopsy photos. We have that's so bizarre to not see the autopsy photos. We've seen the crime scene. The jurors have been brought out there, but to not see the autopsy photos, huge blunder for the prosecution. They know they got major issues. It's reasonable doubt. The autopsy photos in and of themselves are reasonable doubt. Without even having an expert called, you can see this is not a motor vehicle strike.
Right.
Did that raise any suspicions in your mind that Brian Higgins may have been being less than truthful with you?
No.
Think about also how much these witnesses spend on attorney's fees. They spend a lot of money on attorneys to sit there prepping them before all the grand jury testimony, prepping before the first trial, prepping for the second trial, and then sitting through the trials. That's a lot of money.
Getting back to the Waterfall Bar and Grill, you were also aware that Brian Albert was at the Waterfall, correct?
At one point, yes, we learned that.
And you knew that Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were friends with each other. Is that right?
We learned that as well, yes.
You've already indicated that you did not seek Brian Higgins's phone records.
Yeah, so from what the weatherman said, there wasn't like even a half an inch of snow. So why would Higgins be plowing half an inch of snow or less? I think it was 4/10. And I think it's probably around 3/10 or less, or if you're talking about 12/20.
I may have asked you this, and if I did, I apologize. Did you seek Brian Albert's phone records or an extraction from his phone?
No, we did not.
Did you look at the entirety of the waterfall video? Did you review the entirety of the waterfall video when you first obtained it? Or have you looked at it since?
I have at one point or another viewed the entire video, yes.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, this has already been marked as evidence, but I cannot read it. It's not right.
You don't have to be charged with a crime to plead the fifth.
Exhibit 22, I'm told.
Okay.
Maybe
Otherwise, everyone suspected of a crime could be forced to testify, I guess, in essence.
exhibit that for the, or present that for the jurors.
Yes.
And I'm asked to advance this to runtime 8:30 to about 11:08. So a couple
How bad
minutes
this
with court's
video
permission.
is.
Yes.
If you look at microdots and some other stuff,
Play that.
the first trial was this hazy looking.
Can we pause it briefly, Mr. Wolk?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Can you please, if you can, point for the jurors whether or not you see Brian Higgins in that video?
I'll use the screen in front of me for initial indication. I believe I believe that is Brian Higgins right there.
Can you do
Yeah, I think that Proctor could be charged federally for the way he's treated Karen Reed for civil rights violations.
me a favor, just so everybody has a perspective? Can you also point to him there? Okay.
There you go, right there. I believe that is Brian Higgins.
Okay. Do you see Brian Albert in that video?
I can't tell you exactly. Maybe if you run it a little bit longer, or zoom it in, I could possibly tell you. But from right here, right now, I cannot.
Sergeant, why don't we play this for a couple of seconds? And if you don't mind, if you get to a point where you recognize the person that you know is Brian Albert, could you just tell me to stop and I'll pause it?
Absolutely.
Let's go ahead and play it with the court's permission.
Sure.
Can you pause it?
Stop it.
I don't think it's over.
Go ahead, Sergeant.
Brian Albert is the individual right there. Right there.
Can you describe what Brian Albert, and by the way, for the record, Your Honor, the witnesses indicated the person toward the left, right under the 2-9 on the chyron on top, the 29?
Yes.
Can you describe what you see the two individuals, Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, doing in this scene?
It looks like they are facing each other, possibly squaring off in a stance.
Can we go ahead and play this forward, please? Can we pause it? Sergeant, did you see either of the two men or both of them squaring off in what you would consider to be a fighting stance?
I guess it could be considered that. I would look more like roughhousing,
Right.
a couple of buddies messing around.
Not suggesting they were actually fighting, but a fighting stance.
Yeah, no, they were not fighting. No.
Go ahead and play it.
That's interesting here. So there's not as much media coverage now against Karen since Yuri's cross began. That's interesting. Yeah, that's what Microdust is a YouTube channel. So if you just go to your YouTube search and type in
Pause it.
Microdust, you'll find it.
Sergeant, do you happen to see in this shot, just for orientation, do you see my client, Ms. Reed?
I'm sorry, I was paying attention to the two gentlemen. I
That's fair. That's kind of an unfair question. Could you, if we play this a few more seconds, could you look around, scan around, and tell me if you see someone that you believe is my client?
Yes, I will try.
Let's go ahead and play. Go ahead and pause it. Do you see anybody that looks like Ms. Reed?
Yes, I believe she's in top right corner of the frame talking to Mr. O'Keefe and I believe two other gentlemen.
Long hair?
On your client?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and play this up to 11:08, please. Is that up to 11:08? Okay, thank you. We can take that one down briefly. This is, if we have the lights, thank you. Sergeant, this is at the waterfall just before midnight on January 29th, 2022, correct? What you just saw.
That footage is from the waterfall just before midnight on 28th.
I'm sorry. my mistake, on the January 28th, 2022.
Correct.
Going into midnight, January 29th, 2022.
Yes, sir.
All right. This would be just minutes before everyone headed out of the waterfall and went back toward Fairview, correct?
Not everyone. The band didn't go to the Fairview.
Well, obviously, I'm not talking about the band or the bartenders. I'm talking about Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, John O'Keefe, Karen Reed, those folks. Correct?
It's before some of those individuals left the bar and headed to 34 Fairview.
If we could push to runtime 16:35, 17:22, while you're queuing that up, did you see, after I asked you the initial time?
I don't think the defense has really brought this up at all or enough. The snow being under the body. So the way they're saying their timeline, if there's like less than an inch of snow on the ground at 12:31, half an inch, I should say less than half an inch or so around 12:31, then John laying in that snow for that long would have probably even melted that. Remember, Carrie said you could see there's still grass. You could see most of the grass. So barely, is this more like a light dusting of snow? So him laying in there for over 5 hours, and then it adds up to over 4 inches, you would see an outline of the place he was laying in the snow. So I don't think that's been brought up enough in this trial.
Time about the stance that the two men were taking, Brian Albert and Brian Higgins. Did you see them continue to take what could be reasonably described as fighting stance toward each other, even in jest?
They were squaring off and roughhousing, yeah.
Okay, what does squaring off mean?
Facing an opponent in like wrestling or a martial art, I guess.
Hands up?
Yes, squaring off, yeah.
You are former military
Yes,
and current law enforcement.
yes.
Is hand-to-hand fighting taught in both military and paramilitary organizations like law enforcement?
I had hand-to-hand combat training in the Marine Corps. I had defensive tactics in law enforcement capacity in the Marine Corps, federal, local, and state academies.
Are you aware that Brian Albert is former military?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I am aware that Brian Albert is former military.
And Brian Albert was also a Boston police officer.
I am aware of that as well, yes.
Are you aware that Brian Higgins was former military and a combat veteran?
Now I am, yes.
And are you aware that Brian Higgins, at the time this video was taken, was also a federal law enforcement agent?
I was aware, yes, I was,
Okay.
yeah.
If we can go ahead and run at 16:35 to 17:22 with the court's permission.
Okay.
If you can pause it. Can you describe for the jurors what you see Brian Albert and Brian Higgins doing in this footage?
Based on my understanding, it looks like he's giving him the Heimlich maneuver or
As if
abdominal thrust, I guess. I don't know what he's doing.
Brian Albert's got his hands around Brian Higgins, correct?
That's what it looks like from here. I have no idea what he's doing.
Could it be described as wrestling or grappling?
I guess, yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and play it.
Yeah, see they're wrestling around there. Great. Please keep your comments clean.
Thank you. If we can take that down. During the course of reviewing this video, or the entirety of the video, not just the clips that you just reviewed, did you see where John O'Keefe was, generally speaking, relative to Brian Higgins and Brian Albert?
Throughout the entire time?
He wasn't standing still, I understand that, but generally, was he standing with them or was he closer to the bar in the back of the video?
I believe after Mr. O'Keefe arrived and embraced a few people with hugs, I guess I've had to estimate most of the time he was on the other side of the table, which would be closest to the bar area.
And after you saw Mr. O'Keefe walk in and greet everybody with salutations, did you ever see him interacting with Brian Higgins?
They're trying to show the aggressiveness of Higgins and also Albert there, and the way Higgins was motioning at John towards the end of the video here.
Brian Albert throughout the evening again on this video.
If you look at microdots, they'll be a lot more easily understood than what we see here.
On this video, I did not know.
I'd like to play runtime, one more clip. You're on a runtime 1915 to 1957, about 45 or 50 seconds. Can you pause it? Just to orient the jurors, can you see any individuals that you earlier described, Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, John O'Keefe, Karen Reed, any of those individuals in this clip as yet? Or do we need to play it a little further?
I would need you to play it a little bit further, please.
Is it possible, with the court's permission, to zoom in on the upper portion of the video?
Okay.
You could center that just a little bit.
I mean, you'd think it would be, and what not to do as a prosecutor, but don't know if they do real life breakdowns. I graduated from law school in 1990, so video of the cases was pretty much unheard of at that time. So it probably was non-existent. So we didn't have any trials to study through videotape.
Bit toward the right. Other way. There we go. Thank you. And if we could go ahead and play that from 1915 to about 1957. Pause it. Do you recognize the three people center screen now?
I really can't make it out. I would have to be assuming,
I
or
want you to assume.
guessing. I can't make it out
Let's
to
play,
identify each individual.
let's play it forward if we can. One more time.
I can't like comments when I'm doing a live stream, if that's what you're asking.
At this point, go ahead and pause it. At this point, can you make out any individuals?
Yes.
Okay.
At this point, I can say that that looks like Brian Higgins in the middle of the three gentlemen.
What is he wearing?
It looks like a hooded sweatshirt.
Okay. And the person to his, sorry, let's do it from your perspective or the juror's perspective. The person to the left of Brian Higgins
I believe that's Brian Albert.
and the person to the right of Brian Higgins.
To the right from my perspective.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I believe that's Chris Albert, but I'm not positive. I'm
Okay,
not
let's go ahead and
positive.
play it. Stop. Did you see Brian Higgins just do something?
I was not paying attention to his gesture. We have to replay that, please.
Does it appear he's looking a particular direction?
He is looking in a particular direction based on that frame, yes.
Is that toward the bar area?
It's in that direction. I don't know exactly where he's looking, whether he's looking at the bar, to the right of the bar. I can't tell from this.
Okay, okay. And John O'Keefe, you indicated earlier that John O'Keefe, that's where you saw him most of the video, toward the bar area, to the right of the bar.
If you scroll to push the screen to the right, I can tell you where Mr. O'Keefe is.
With the court's permission.
Yes.
Do you see Mr. O'Keefe in that group of people?
I cannot make him out. Could you play the video? Maybe he is behind an individual.
Let's go back to, if with the court's permission, I'd like to go back to the full video.
Okay.
Let's play it from here. Pause it. Could you see what was happening with Brian Higgins?
He was gesturing to someone.
Do you know-
I was trying to see Mr. O'Keefe. We were talking about Mr. O'Keefe, so
Understood.
I apologize.
Understood. With the court's permission, could I play the video one more time with it focused on the other side of the bar?
Okay.
Thank you. Last time.
Can you tell me who to focus on, please,
Yes.
so I'm not looking for the wrong person?
Sure, sure. Pause it. Do you see John O'Keefe there?
Yes, I do.
Okay, can you point to where he is to the jurors, please, on both televisions?
Mr. O'Keefe is right there wearing the sweatshirt multi-tone gray sweatshirt with the hood on it and his hat.
And
And
the
this
other TV.
right
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
appears to be at the bar paying the bill.
Okay. With this perspective, could we just go ahead and play that the 30 or 45 seconds one more time? And please focus on Mr. O'Keefe. Pause it. Do you see where Mr. O'Keefe is looking at this point?
Yes.
Where is he looking? What direction?
Well, from this vantage point, it looks like he's looking to the left on the screen at the individual he's appears to be conversing with.
Okay, go ahead and play it. Pause it. And what about now?
Same individual.
Okay.
He's still engaged in conversation.
Pause it. And what about now?
He's taking a sip of beer
Right. Which direction is he looking?
in the same direction.
Okay. Go ahead, play.
I'm going to jump ahead to. Oh, we're almost there.
Take that down. Right of Brian Higgins.
All right, this is the main, probably one of the main parts here.
Thank you. If we take that down. During the course of reviewing this video, or the entirety of the video, got his hands.
Oh, I am. Yes.
Ron, if you can pause it. Can you describe for the jurors what you see Brian Albert and Brian Higgins doing?
What he's
Part in
Clip
here.
line. Pause. Court permission to, you can
Where they're getting ready to leave.
center.
I can't make it out
Let's
to
play,
identify each individual. If
let's
you-
play it forward if we can. One more time. At this point, go ahead and pause it. At this point, can you make out any individuals?
Yes.
Okay.
At this point, I can say that that looks like Brian Higgins in the middle of the three gentlemen.
What is he wearing?
It's got
It
that-
looks like a hooded sweatshirt.
Okay. And the person to his, sorry, let's do it from your perspective, or the juror's perspective. The person to the left of Brian Higgins
I believe that's Brian Albert.
and the person to the right of Brian Higgins.
To the right from my perspective.
Yes, sir.
I believe that's Chris Albert, but I'm not positive. I'm
Okay,
not
let's go ahead and
positive.
play it. Stop. Did you see Brian Higgins just do something?
See that motion?
I was not paying attention to his gesture. We have to replay that, please.
Does it appear he's looking a particular direction?
He is looking in a particular direction based on that frame. Yes,
Is that toward the bar area?
it's in that direction. I don't know exactly where he's looking. Whether he's looking at the bar, to the right of the bar, I can't tell from this.
Okay, okay. And John O'Keefe, you indicated earlier that John O'Keefe, that's where you saw him most of the video, toward the bar area or to the right of the bar.
If you scroll to push the screen to the right, I can tell you where Mr. O'Keefe is.
With the court's permission.
Yes.
Do you see Mr. O'Keefe in that group of people?
I cannot make him out. Could you play the video? Maybe he is behind an individual.
Let's
That
let's
is
go
true.
back to, if with the court's permission, I'd like to go back to the full video. And let's play it from here.
Yeah.
Pause it. Could you see what was happening with Brian Higgins?
He was gesturing to someone.
Do you know-
I was trying to see Mr. O'Keefe. We were talking about Mr. O'Keefe, so
Understood.
I apologize.
Understood. With the court's permission, could I play the video one more time with it focused on the other side of the bar?
Okay.
Thank you. Last time.
Can you tell me who to focus on, please,
Yes.
so I'm not looking for the wrong person?
Sure. Pause it. Do you see John O'Keefe there?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Can you point to where he is?
He's got a hoodie on.
On both
It's like-
televisions?
Mr. O'Keefe is right there wearing the sweatshirt, multi-tone gray sweatshirt with the hood on it and his hat.
And
And
on the
this
other TV?
right
Okay.
there. He's appears to be at the bar paying the bill.
Okay. With this perspective, could we just go ahead and play that the 30 or 45 seconds one more time. And but please focus on Mr. O'Keefe. Pause it. Do you see where Mr. O'Keefe is looking at this point?
Yes.
Where is he looking? What direction?
Well, from this vantage point, it looks like he's looking to the left on the screen at the individual he appears to be conversing with.
Okay, go ahead and play it. Pause it. And what about now?
Same individual.
Okay.
He's still engaged in conversation.
Pause it. And what about now?
He's taking a sip of beer
Right. Which direction is he looking?
in the same direction.
Go ahead and play it. And go ahead and pause it. We could go back out to the full screen. At this point, does it appear in the video that Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, Chris Albert have all left the bar?
There's someone standing across the table from Mr. O'Keefe to his rear. I don't know who that is, so I can't testify to that. The others have left.
Given this perspective, now that we've seen both of them zoomed, do you have an opinion as to whether or not it appeared that Mr. Higgins was gesturing toward John O'Keefe just before he left the bar?
Given this perspective, he might have been. I don't know who he was gesturing at.
Okay. We can have the lights up. Check that down. I want to change gears for a second. Let me ask one more series of questions, if I could, Sergeant. What we've just seen was literally Brian Albert, Brian Higgins leaving Waterfall to go to a different location. What was the location they were headed to, based on your investigation?
They were heading to 34 Ferry Road.
And shortly thereafter, who else followed to go over to 34 Fairview?
I'm sorry, you said Chris Albert?
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't. Okay.
Nope.
Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, they went to 34 Fairview, and then Mr. O'Keefe also traveled there.
Thank you. I want to shift gears, if I could, to another video. Did you review certain ring videos, specifically Chevy Traverse in the upper left-hand, the vehicle in the upper left-hand corner of the video?
Look at all this green. Why is that green there?
Pause it.
Is there some kind of
Let's go
enhancement?
ahead and zoom in on the upper left-hand corner. Okay, go ahead and play.
Look at green inside the cab. Why would you have green? That's see how it got bumped.
Did you see anything happen with the left
Just did a
rear
film
tire of the other car in the driveway?
John's SUV.
Which car are you talking about?
The highlighted portion.
I wasn't paying attention to.
Right there, you see it bumped and moves it a
Pause it.
little bit.
Okay, you can take that down.
Based on that video,
Move back.
Left rear tire of the Chevy Traverse.
based on that video, it appears there might have been movement there.
Last year, and you've seen this video several times, correct?
I have.
You saw it during the course of your investigation, not just in the course of proceedings, correct?
Right.
Last year, you indicated that you observed the vehicle, Ms. Reed's vehicle, come near Mr. O'Keefe's car. Which one in that video was Mr. O'Keefe's car?
The Chevy Traverse.
And that would be the car that was parked and static, not moving, correct?
Correct.
Having seen this, do you still believe that the SUV came near the Chevy Traverse, or do you believe it struck the Chevy Traverse?
With the clarity of that video, there is a lot of movement in the shot. Not with great certainty. It appeared that there was movement of the tire, but I cannot say with 100% certainty that there was movement.
You can't say with 100% certainty that that tire literally shifted and wiggled on some sort of impact.
Based on the video, there appeared to have been movement.
Okay.
Glad he admitted that.
You had this video for
It's wasting a half an hour.
the first 3 years of your investigation. You had this video very early on, correct?
That's correct.
And for the first several years of your investigation, did you either deny, well, let me ask it this way. Was it your assessment that the SUV did not contact that Chevy Traverse?
My assessment with the totality of it all was that based on the video, there was no damage that occurred to either vehicle at that point in time.
That wasn't my question, Sergeant. My question was your assessment that there was no contact between the two vehicles? Is that what you assessed in the course of your investigation?
I did not assess that there was no contact, no.
Even as recently as last year, you testified in another proceeding that the SUV came close to the Chevy Traverse, correct?
Yes, I said there's a lot of movement in that shot. It's difficult to tell if there was more for me to observe and push that certainty level up. I would have testified differently.
As you've seen the video enhanced, zoomed in on, do you wish to amend that testimony from last year?
Ask a different question.
Sure. Given what you've just
Please.
seen, what is your testimony now about whether or not that SUV struck the Chevy Traverse?
There is movement of the tire. There is movement.
Movement of the tire. Could be an earthquake, could be someone standing there and pushing the car. I'm asking you, based on what you just saw in this video, do you believe that the SUV struck the Chevy Traverse?
Just logically speaking, the two vehicles had to have come into contact for the tire to move.
They have to have collided, correct?
At a slow speed, yes.
Which area of the SUV collided with the Chevy Traverse? The front, the rear?
It appears from the video it's the right rear area of the Lexus SUV that comes into contact with the Traverse.
What time was this video taken?
I believe that is at 5:07 a.m., if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you, Sergeant. I want to change gears
Right.
again, if I could, and ask you about a dog. You're aware that the Alberts, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert, had a dog that they named Chloe on on January 28th, 29th of 2022, correct?
Gotcha.
I'll allow the question. Were you aware of that?
At what point in time, sir?
January 28th, 29th, that area.
Was I aware that they owned a dog on January 28th or 29th?
No. Are you aware now that on January 28th or 29th, they owned a dog? There was a
now,
dog in the house.
Now I am aware, yes.
Okay. During the course of your investigation, you learned that, correct?
Yes.
During the course of your investigation, did you also become aware that the Alberts got rid of their family dog?
Objection.
I'm going to see you at sidebar on this, please.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Okay. Got to try to keep this out. This is very critical for the defense. Show suspicious behavior of the homeowner of 34 Fairview.
I think I'm named Chloe. Your Honor. Thank you. I think I forgot where I left off. May I, Your Honor? Thank you. Sergeant, at some point during the course of your investigation, did you learn that the Albert family had gotten rid of the dog named Chloe?
We learned that they no longer cared for the dog. I don't know if get rid of is accurate.
Well, they don't have it anymore, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what would you call it?
Giving it up for adoption, I guess? I don't know. I'm not a pet owner.
What if they didn't give it up for adoption?
I'm sorry?
What if they didn't give it up for adoption?
Rehomed, I guess?
Okay, so it's no longer with them, right?
Correct. They no longer own the dog.
Okay, so they got rid of it. It's like you get rid of a car, right? Right?
You can get rid of a car, yeah?
Okay, and you can get rid of a dog. That's all I'm asking.
Yes, you can get rid of a dog, yes.
Okay. At some point during the course of your investigation, did you find out that the Albert family got rid of Chloe?
We learned that they no longer own Chloe, yes.
Okay. When did you learn that?
Probably at the first trial.
I cannot tell you exactly.
Okay.
I can tell you when we looked into it officially.
When did you look into it officially?
I traveled to the dog's home and assisted with identifying the dog and investigating that animal.
Okay. What documentation did you use to identify that animal?
It was veterinary records.
I don't stop there. Veterinary records from whom? From the Albert family? When they,
I did not get any veterinary records from the Albert family.
the veterinary records that you did get were veterinary records that had been utilized with the Albert name? Where were these veterinary records?
The veterinary records were with the vet that's caring for the dog and also owns the dog now.
Okay.
And those records also had been dated prior to when the dog was owned by the Alberts.
Okay. So other than some veterinary records that, and by the way, the dog's not even named Chloe, correct?
The new owners renamed the dog, yes.
Cora?
That's correct.
And the new owners did not get that dog from Brian and Nicole Albert, did they?
No, they did not.
They got it from a separate person. Is that right?
That is correct.
Separate person named Riley?
That's her last name, yes.
He looks very uncomfortable.
And did
He's not
this person,
happy.
Riley, have any records showing purchase of Chloe or adoption of Chloe from the Alberts?
No.
He knows he doesn't look good for prosecution.
You did write a report about the newest owner of this animal, this dog, correct?
I documented my trip to the location and the steps I took and services I provided in the investigation.
And in that report, you omitted the name of the new owner.
I'm not sure.
Did you omit the location of where you actually came in contact with this animal?
You're going to have to show me my report. I don't remember.
Okay, I apologize about that.
No problem.
The one slowing us down just a little bit. May I approach?
Yes.
No, it is not.
You've got
Did.
the new owner's identifying information is in this report.
It did.
And is that information in the report?
No, it is not.
You've got, there are some
Concealed.
veterinary records that you supplied along with your report, correct?
Yes.
That you gathered?
I'm sorry. What was
That you
it?
gathered along while you were doing?
Yes. Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
If you'll take a look at those 4 documents. Do those appear to be the veterinary records that you gathered related to this animal?
These are part of the police report. You should be familiar with them. It's part of his report.
Yes, it does.
Do any of those records, any of the veterinary records, the 4 pages that you're holding, even include the name Cora or the name of the new owner?
They should. Why wouldn't that be in there? You don't have those name of the owner.
I browsed through it, and no, it does not appear that Cora or the new owner are included in any of these 4 pages.
May I approach?
Yes.
All the records that are provided by the owner.
I'm going to go through a series of questions, Sergeant. If you can answer it yes or no, that might make it go a little faster. You don't have any transfer records, correct?
I would know what it looks like. That's why it's even quicker me telling you that that's all the records that I have.
Okay. I want to answer my question. You don't have any transfer records.
I don't know what a transfer record would look like, so
the
I
answer is
can't.
no.
I don't know.
Okay. You don't have any rehoming records.
I don't know.
You don't have any purchase records.
I don't know.
The only records you do have are those 4 pages of veterinary records that don't have the name Cora and don't have the new owner's name. Correct?
That's correct.
You would agree, shifting gears for a second, that timely report writing obviously is an important aspect of any investigation, correct?
It is important, but we can only write reports as feasibly and possibly we're capable of doing. Sometimes investigations are rapid, so you can't write a report. You take notes, and some time goes by before you actually document the information on an official report. The information's there, it's gathered, it's maintained by the investigator, it's shared, it's acted on at times, but the official reports might take some time to write.
So obviously, if you're, like you said, things are fast moving in an investigation. It might be that you interview a witness on a Tuesday, you're super busy on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It might be Friday before you can even sit down and draft a report about that interview that you did on Tuesday, correct?
Different circumstances dictate differently.
That would be completely wrong.
Yes, it is.
But most of the time, it's best practices, and you're taught, and you teach your subordinates, it's best practices to reduce to writing and memorialize a report as close in time to the event in question that's being memorialized as you can, right? Obviously, perfect world.
In a perfect world, we'd write it as it's happening.
Are you aware that more than 20 official police reports in this case were not recorded for more than 100 days from the time that the event in question was done, was being memorialized?
I did not know the exact date in delay.
Are you aware that there are 11 reports that are more than 300 days from the time of the event that was being memorialized?
I was not aware, no.
Are you aware that there
30
are
days.
3 reports that are more than 400 days from the time of the event that was being memorialized?
I am not aware, no.
Are you aware that there are 4 reports that are more than 500 days from the time of the event that's being memorialized?
I am not aware, no.
Are you aware that the longest delay of any report in this investigation was 581 days?
I am not aware of that, no.
You became aware early on in your investigation of 2 individuals named Ricky D'Antano and Heather Maxon, correct?
They are witnesses, yes.
Both Ricky D'Antano and Heather Maxon, you learned, were outside 34 Fairview in the early morning hours of January 29th, correct?
We did learn within our investigation at some point, yes.
And you learned, Sergeant, very early on in that investigation because you interviewed Ryan Nagel in February of 2022. It's just days after the event, correct?
I'm not sure of the exact date.
Obviously, as you just said, you became aware that Ricky D'Antano and Heather Maxon were
Right, I
witnesses.
can just summarize the last few points here. Basically, he goes on to say that he never considered Brian Albert or Brian Higgins suspects, despite all these various indicators. And he says that this Ricky and Karen arrived simultaneously at 34 Fairview. Jackson reminds him of the witness sequestration order. And when shown the report, you can see that Ricky, who had driven Ryan Nagel and his girlfriend at 34 Fairview, had told him that when he arrived at 34 Fairview, Karen's SUV was already parked. So they didn't arrive simultaneously, as he had earlier indicated in some reporting. So that was pretty much it. So just from the way he came across yesterday and today, this sergeant is pretty much showing how completely disastrous this so-called investigation happened. There was no memorialization of events as they occurred. Things were done, as we just heard, 300 some days later, 500 some days later, because they knew they had to get ready for trial. And they knew they didn't have proper documentation. What's too late then if you're going to do that? You need the chain of custody on items as they're being handed from person to person. And that clearly was not done here. This guy had stuff stored in his vehicle for days on end, never processing it properly. So this whole evidence handling is a complete mess. The way they handled the 34 Fairview front yard, complete disaster, hot mess. Same thing, they never checked for any evidence inside the house or the backyard or the side of the yard. So, and they never checked with neighbors. They never did any canvassing. So the whole thing is pretty much a disaster any way you look at it. And this is a guy that the prosecutor is bringing to represent integrity and honor in investigation. and we haven't even got to Proctor yet. So anyway, this is, I would say, the best day for the defense. And this guy got crushed, and you can tell he just looks completely defeated, and he didn't want to be there, and he had no energy to really help this jury figure out what happened to John O'Keefe. And we still don't have autopsy photos, so this case is, like I've said many times, it's about not presenting the truth to the jury, but through all these objections and favorable rulings for the prosecutions, trying to keep out critical evidence that helps Karen's defense. We're not seeing reality here of what happened to John O'Keefe. So anyway, the defense is going to keep hammering away, and I think it's going to get better and better. I think there's going to be some surprises, some twists and turns that will help the defense. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to do any more questions here. It's getting late. But you all have a great weekend. Thanks for supporting justice for Karen Reed and her family. So take care. Have a great weekend. Out.